Hello, welcome. Whoops, get my microphone here. Everybody hear me? Here we go. All right, welcome to tonight's wonderful meeting of the Ashland School Board for, what is the date today?
14th.
March 14th, 2024.
Pi Day.
So, yeah, what?
It's Pi Day.
Pi Day. All right, Pi Day. I should have known that. Where's our pie? All right, and so let the record show that all 5 school board directors are present, and this meeting is officially called to order. Russell will give our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that the sacred land that we, sorry, can you hear me? We acknowledge that the sacred land that we live and learn on today belongs to the Takelma, Shasta, Modoc, Klamath, and Umpqua peoples. We honor and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we now call the United States. We recognize the Native American people's continuing connection to the land, place, waters, and community. We pay our respects to their cultures, country, and elders, past, present, and emerging.
Thank you. Okay, so first up on our agenda is adopting the agenda. So I will take a motion. I assume everybody has reviewed the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I second.
All in favor? Approved. Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the consent agenda. So we have a pretty long list of items on the consent agenda this evening. Is everybody okay with the consent agenda as presented?
I wanted to pull and talk about IKF. Just had a question about it.
Sure. Okay. Should we do that first and then move on with the rest?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So Samuel, I guess this is a question to you, and I'm not seeing Erica, so I guess it's a question to you.
She was
Am I
going to
seeing
be,
Erica?
well, she was going to be coming in remotely, but
Okay.
maybe not yet.
So I'm just curious, and I know you've talked about it, but I don't really remember, and it would be just helpful for me to understand again. So we are no longer going to measure essential learnings. Is that right?
That's my understanding, is the essential skills are no longer required.
Okay. And so just in terms of a check for, oh, is she there? Oh,
Yeah.
goody. So I guess I just want to feel really confident that our graduates are meeting, meeting some sort of standard of skills. How do we know, beyond, of course, taking classes, how do we know that they've met, like, these essential kind of standard, that these education levels that we would want our graduate students to have,
Sure.
Graduating students?
Well, I think the answer that one is, of course, the rigorous course content, but I think, two, that the state is really reevaluating what it's doing with SBAC, what it's doing with essential skills. I'm not sure where they'll land in terms of a common assessment tool, but I anticipate that will be coming. And where we're at in the interim is a little bit up in the air. Erica may actually have more information on that than I do, but it is a fair question.
Okay.
In terms of if you're looking at a statewide way to assure that kids have met certain standards.
Right.
Standards are embedded in coursework, of course,
Sure.
and teachers have to teach to standards, but it's nice to have a common assessment tool.
Yeah. I think I see Eric.
Erica, do you have anything to add? Oh, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
No.
Erica, if you can hear us, we can't. We haven't quite got sound from you yet, so we're working that out. Okay.
Somebody else is talking.
No, can't hear you either. Thanks for
Yeah.
checking.
Tech support is on its way.
Oh, the joys.
It's one of our kindergarten students that's helping us with technology today. Just kidding.
I see Erica on mute.
Yeah.
We asked her to speak. Erica, can you try speaking again?
Oh, no.
Still don't.
Folks out in Zoom
So,
land, we're
apologies.
experiencing technical issues.
But thank you for bringing this up, Eva. I mean, I just so that everybody's aware, obviously these are standards that are being mandated at the state level, right? So it's not, this isn't a decision we're making as a district. This is something that we're following
Yeah.
based on state mandate.
And we know based on discussions that we've had at OSBA that Oregon students, their achievement level is not very strong compared to the rest of the country. So it would really be nice to know what is going to be done to make sure that there's a standard that people are being held accountable to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you try again, Erica?
Good evening.
Oh, yay! Hello!
Hello. Nice to hear you all. I can't see you, but I trust that you are all there.
And we can see you.
Yeah, so I don't have much more to add than what Daniel shared, except to say that the state is really investigating what kind of standardized measures make the most sense. I think the state has some concerns about some of the structures of standardized assessments and how that can have disproportionate impacts on certain populations and how those are built. And so I think they're looking for a different way. I think there's not necessarily an idea that we shouldn't have a standardized measure to see whether or not students have met a certain achievement level. But right now they're really hoping or counting on schools relying on, as Samuel said, rigorous coursework and then meeting the credit requirements required for high school graduation, which of course you have to show multiple competencies for that. Oregon does have some of the highest standards in terms of the numbers of credits required for a high school diploma, which I know is a little bit counterintuitive in comparison to our achievement. And it, you could go down a whole pathway about grading policies and equity in grading and whether or not that's a true measure of student knowledge. But as we move forward, that's what they're investigating. I understand it's until I think they have maybe 2 more years before they have to make a decision, but I could be wrong about that. My understanding is they've pressed pause on it. They haven't made a firm decision, but the pause has been extended another couple of years.
So just, Erica, how do we, and I'm saying this rhetorically to some degree, but actually it is a question too, how do we know that our students who are graduating are prepared, how do we feel confident that they have the skills that they need to be successful beyond high school?
Yeah, I mean, we really are putting quite a bit of emphasis on the essential skills that are listed in the course syllabi, and what a teacher is saying when they're issuing a passing grade or offering a credit is that the students have met those core competencies and those essential skills that are listed in the syllabus. That's an imperfect science. We're also looking at, of course, the other standardized measures that we have available to us. Just because it's not required for graduation doesn't mean that we are not rigorously reviewing the standardized assessment results that we get. And we've also seen a bit of a return to some of the measures that teachers have always found most helpful. So using that writing rubric, for example, to score student writing and seeing whether or not they've met the assessment for writing in a neutral way. So teachers will cross-grade those papers, score them together, and make sure that kind of going back to that 5-trait rubric and pulling that apart. And some classes are easier to measure than others, whether or not students have met those competencies. I think if students have gotten through 3 years of math at algebra and above at Ashland High School, we can feel reasonably confident that they've met the standards that they need to meet in order to graduate. And similarly, with 4 years of language arts credits at passing grades, depending on the course, those essential skills are also pretty clearly delineated. So we're really considering the awarding of credit, the formative assessments, the summative assessments that we do have access to, so SAT, PSAT, and then the formative writing samples that teachers are doing, I think, 3 times a year at this point, to really give us good information about where they are skill-wise. But we don't have a guaranteed system as we did when we had the essential skills requirement. That is a change.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have anything else they'd like to pull from the consent agenda? All right, in that case, I will take a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor? All right, motion passes. Okay, next we have our school report, and this month we have Willow Wind Community Learning Center with Principal Debbie Pugh.
I brought Zoe today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Zoe.
Zoe's a teacher at Willow Wind, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. We don't have kids today. We couldn't get any volunteers, but we brought you virtual kids.
You'll see their smiling faces. I am the Garden Diversity and Nature teacher. Currently, that's my position, and I'm here to share what we are doing in terms of utilizing the school garden and the greenhouse and starting a culinary program. A lot of hands-on learning. There we go. So each grade gets half an hour to an hour and a half in the garden every week. They maintain the garden. We also utilize the greenhouse as an indoor classroom and as a place to start the process of growing food from seed. Thanks to an ASF grant last year, we were able to purchase some equipment for an outdoor kitchen, which leads to cooking. So far we've done 3 meals that the students have grown and prepared and eaten. We find recipes that are USDA quantifiable, and like you would be meeting each grain requirement, protein requirement, to make sure they're getting all the good stuff. And so here's our first, last spring. Students, it would be really cool if I could have this in presentation mode. But this is not my computer.
If you hit slideshow on the top in the red bar, and then go to current slide.
Thank you. Yay, okay.
Thank you.
I'm the tech guy.
Thank you.
District better be worried.
Give that man a raise.
We had all this delicious lettuce that the students harvested and prepared, and the 6th grade part of garden class is some culinary projects, and they did a salad dressing challenge where they had many different oils and vinegars and flavors, and they created different dressings, voted on them, wrote down the recipes, tweaked them as needed, and they ended up with this final recipe that the class agreed on, which was featured, and it was very delicious. And a lot of students ate a lot of salad that day. Our next recipe comes from Food Hero, which is a great OSU extension project, a lot of great education around nutrition. And we did a 3 Sisters soup, which tied into a lot of the lessons we were doing in spring around 3 Sisters growing methods and indigenous agriculture practices. So we were able to use a seasonal recipe. We harvested carrots, onions, garlic, butternut squash, a lot of stuff, some beans, and 2nd graders were in charge of the carrots in their garden bed, so they harvested them, washed them, weighed them, figured out how many we would need per pot of soup. And then the upper schoolers are in charge of further processing it, so we practiced some knife skills, and everyone was very safe. The only things that make me nervous are the box graders. But yeah, we were able to eat a lot of butternut squash and carrots, and with a side of cornbread. So they had that grain as well with their protein and vegetable serving. And our last recipe was pasta with greens and beans. This is another Harvest for Schools Oregon and Food Hero recipe. And it turned out a little brown, but overall really delicious. It incorporated our frozen tomatoes from the garden, which students, we did a vine ripening experiment. So we actually harvested our tomatoes green before frost came, hung them in the greenhouse, and then tracked as they ripened. And we ended up with a whole second harvest from that. And then we froze them, and then we're able to peel them, add them for the sauce. Kale from the garden, which grows year-round. Dehydrated basil as well. We have a dehydrator that the students like to process herbs with, and we were able to serve that up. And thanks to the Parent Partnership Program, we have lots of parents that are excited to be involved and do want to put in time to make this program successful. And we're excited to announce that next year, this year we received a $15,000 grant from the Oregon Department of Education. This is to support the school garden. This is to support students having access to fresh seasonal food. And so we're going to use this to kind of grow this homegrown lunch program, as well as provide some material support for the garden and bringing in some more of a tasting table model, but from local farms each month, just something to taste to bring their understanding of what's growing around them, and hopefully open their palates to some of the more fun fruits and vegetables that are out there. So, thank you.
And to help support it, besides the grant money, Zoe helps the kids, and they have a farm stand class. So they're actually running a business. They sell produce when it's available, or they make products out of things they grew, like soap and, I'm going to fill in what other things were they making?
Herbal tea, dehydrated, seasonings, lip balm, little packaged things that incorporate items from the garden. And that's also a financial literacy class. So we do like a business plan. We talk about counting back change to customers. All that good stuff.
And they're cute. They're really cute.
And
So they're
do you have a booth, like at the
Well, it's just at Willow
growers
Wind.
market? It's just on
Yeah,
campus.
Yep, it is on
Okay.
campus.
They encourage parents to.
How can we get in on
Yeah,
this?
how can other people get it? So when is the booth is after school at 3:30?
Wednesdays at 1:30.
1:30.
Or 1:20 to 1:30.
Okay, so early
Okay.
release, they're
I
out
should
there.
put that out there.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Russell is a frequent customer.
So do you work with Rogue Valley Farm to School at all, or is this a separate from that?
This is separate. I did serve with Rogue Valley Farm to School as a food corps service member for 2 years, and then I was hired on for 2 years after that. But then this is entirely through Willow Wind.
Okay.
But Zoe meets with them periodically.
I do I try to meet with them for PLC, just around what are the best practices around garden education at least once a month. And I was able to actually last month attend the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Summit with them at OSU and talk in front of 200 people about the Willow Wind program in Corvallis, which was really cool to see. A lot of people were excited about it and wanting to know more.
And for Women's History Month, Zoe had the kids make Alice Waters recipes, and we honored her because she was the first female chef to win
The James
James
Beard
Beard
Award for Outstanding Chef.
So we sent her, we'll see if we hear back, but we sent her a little blurb and some pictures about it. I sent it to her.
Oh, cool.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, the report back from my son is that the food is really good. He loves it. And yeah, his only complaint is he wants more.
Yeah, the kids like it, and we for kids who want to contribute, it was $3 for the meal, but we feed everybody. So, but that does help fill the coffers of the fund in order to, make the recipes and all of that. So it's all one big fund that the farm stand goes into, the grants go into. We got some generous donations from ASF, and then what the students bring too. So we're hoping to get it to be really self-sustaining. And next year we're hoping, our goal is 1 meal a month. We did it quarterly this time.
There is something just to put on your radar called the Living Schoolyards Act, and I just wondered if it would be federal grants available to, it's not just gardens, but shade trees and various things. I've been following it for over a year. It hasn't passed yet, but
Keep our fingers crossed.
yes.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have a discussion of the SEL Curriculum Committee. And I believe we have our 2 presenters online, as well as Diane Berry. So Erica Bear and Michelle Bollinger are online. For anybody who can't actually see them, I guess, I'm not sure if we can see you on Zoom.
You guys are next to me on there.
Yeah. Okay. I think because Diane's.
All right, we're ready?
Yeah.
Woohoo! We're all a little nervous, but we figured, whatever, we'll do it. Okay, so Erica is here, right, Erica? Hello?
I am here, yes. And thank you so much. We are very excited to share with you the recommendation of the Social Emotional Learning Adoption Committee. They've done a ton of work this year. And I just want to say also how grateful I am to work in a state that has mandated this work and a district that has supported it. I'm actually at a national conference right now and was in a presentation with someone where it's not okay to do this in their state at all. So I'm so grateful, and this work is so important. We are going to review the committee's work, review the recommendations, and then kind of talk about next steps. At the end of this PowerPoint, which we're not going to get into today because it's kind of a whole separate presentation, but it is in that slide deck, is all of the reasons that social emotional learning is so important and the really critical benefits that it provides to our students. So please do review that at your leisure, and we'd be happy to answer any questions on that or any other part of the presentation tonight or at any other time. And with that, I will hand it over to Diane because she really has done the bulk of this work along with her incredible committee.
Okay, so I know most of you, but not all of you. My name is Diane Berry. I think we'll all take an opportunity to introduce ourselves. I've been with the district about 17 years here in Ashland, worked in San Francisco before that, and have both a school social work background, a dean background, and a school counselor background. And now I, in the last 3 years, have worked to coordinate and support our K through 12 counseling and behavioral health folks. And I will turn it over to Carrie, our wonderful Carrie Smith.
Hi, I'm Carrie Smith. I teach 2nd grade at Hellman School. I have taught at Hellman for 20 years in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and have just a passion for social and emotional wellness and teaching throughout our district. So I really thank the board and the leadership of this committee for having this opportunity tonight to present, and also just for the past several months that we were able to really delve into this, which we'll share with you here.
And then we have Michelle, who we don't see, but you see.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Michelle Bollinger. This is my 9th school year in the Ashland School District. I have been at Bellevue Elementary as a child development specialist that entire time. I spent 3 years as a CDS at Trails, and I am currently working at the high school as the 9th grade counselor. SEL is my whole world, and I have so much appreciation for the support that we have gotten from administration and the board to have this committee and to look into programs and curriculum that are best for our kids. So thank you so much.
Okay, so really what we're going to focus on tonight is just kind of explaining our process. And we're going to assume that the board is supportive of SEL, but I am going to, thank you, Rebecca. I like the thumbs up. But I guess I could just turn this. I am going to just, so that we're all on the same page, just give you a very, very introductory, basic overview of what social emotional learning is. It's a real buzzword now, a real buzz phrase. It is across the nation. And as Erica alluded to, it's a little controversial in some places. I've worked with reps who no longer work in the state of Florida. So we feel grateful that it's a priority here in the state of Oregon. So when we think about social emotional learning, it really is just our basic social and emotional skill sets that in days gone by we've really taken for granted. And we know better now. We know that we come into the world differently. We come into the world with different resources, with different role models, with different predispositions and character traits. And so some of us develop these quite fluently and quite easily, just like some of us read without ever knowing how we did it, but we just do it. And some of us struggle more with these and need additional help. We have gaps in certain areas, and that might be because of resources at home, that might be because of neurodivergence, that might be because of trauma, that might be because all sorts of things. But we know that here in the public school setting, just like we can do with reading or math or science, we can identify those gaps. And when we explicitly and intentionally prioritize time to teach, then we can actually close those gaps. And what we know is when we have students who have a baseline competency in these social emotional skills, what that predicts is immense. Immense, not just in terms of their mental well-being, but immense in terms of their academic learning. So they kind of go hand in hand. So when we look at this slide right here, I'm going to very briefly, I know it's hard to believe I'm brief, but I am watching the clock. Okay, there's 5 areas, 5 core standards. You don't need to be expert at them, but I hope you can see them. The 2 in orange are just called self-awareness and self-management. So think about that as self, and that's where we start to develop that awareness of self, what that internal world looks like, and how do we manage that self? How do we regulate our feelings when we're like super frustrated or super embarrassed or disappointed so that we can pick ourselves back up and keep going, all right? Then we move on to developing social awareness, awareness of other. Can I read how Jill feels right now? Can I look at the horizon and see the contextual clues? Some kids can't when they're really little. Children have a really difficult time figuring out the difference between anger and surprise. Can you imagine misreading that down the line? Those are very different feelings, and that would predict very different social interactions. And then we move into building relationship skills. Very basic overview. Obviously, these are complex and nuanced and become developmentally much more developed. That's redundant, but let's just say complex as we get older. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You have this. You'll have this in your packet. This gives you a little bit more description what each of these 5 core standards are. These standards were developed by CASEL, which is kind of the mothership of all things SEL, Collaborative of Academic and Social Emotional Learning. It's kind of a warehouse of a wide breadth of research and best practice guidance. As Erica said, we're really fortunate that the state of Oregon actually prioritized looking at our standards and moved, I think spent the better part of a year, a large kind of statewide committee with all sorts of very, very experienced and thoughtful professionals kind of looking at our standards and following CASEL's recommendations and establishing Oregon standards and calling them transformative. And transformative really does refer to kind of an updating with an equity, diversity, inclusion lens, and really understanding that our traditional SEL standards were kind of developed in a dominant culture lens, and also with a lens that really focused on individual skill sets rather than, context of how those skill sets are developed. And how we recognize diversity, how we recognize a variety of voices, how we recognize that to teach and support strong social emotional skills, we need to actually support our teachers with strong social emotional skills. We actually have to support our parents with strong social emotional skills. So this is what they did. They changed our image a little bit to add some kind of extension standards into each standard. And I do want to make a comment real quick on this. I don't know if you see these concentric circles around these 5 standards. I actually disagree with the order, because I do that sometimes. I think family and caregivers, as a social worker with a social work background, focusing on what are the most important first systems that impact a child's development, it always starts with families and caregivers. Families and caregivers are our immediate teachers and guides. So when we look at a social emotional, what I hope for is like a campaign here in Ashland, we really need to have, and part of what we looked at when we looked at curriculums is a parent piece to support parent education and understanding of how critical these skill sets are. Because as parents, we all come to the table with different kinds of skill sets in this area too. Then we move out to classroom, then we move out to school, then we move out to community. And this is what Oregon did. They looked at, again, they defined the traditional standards as transactional, the current standards as transformative, transactional as being kind of these one-off lessons of teaching kind of at children, whereas transformative, whereas we are really looking at environmental shift of valuing how critical social emotional skills are. I want to say before because I'm doing really good with my time, so I'm gonna add a study here. I want to tell you that social emotional learning began popping up about 45 years ago, and it began becoming kind of known in urban centers where we were seeing kids in schools from less resource backgrounds, from very diverse backgrounds, and from backgrounds where there was more trauma, inner city. And the reason that they started developing social emotional programs at that time is they realized that children were coming into the classroom very dysregulated from very different backgrounds, and we needed to actually bring this into the school setting. That is where actually Second Steps started. About 2011, there was a very big, giant study. Eva, since you're my research person, put on by the University of Loyola, University of Chicago. It was a meta-analysis. These researchers reviewed 213 studies that looked at SEL programs in public schools K through 12. This looked at SEL programs implemented with 270,000 children. And the big result that they came up with, there were many results, is that across the board, with those 270,000 children, they saw an 11% increase in academic achievement. 11% on standardized tests. And they thought, SEL, this is a powerful, powerful piece of our educational system. And this is when we started seeing a big blow up of SEL programs across the nation. And the reason being, it's not rocket science for us to imagine why. When we have kids who are more self-aware, more self-regulated, more able to connect to their peer, more able to collaborate, their anxiety comes down. They relax. Now they're able to focus. They're able to actually access the math lesson or the science lesson better. It's not a panacea, it's not an answer, but it definitely is a big critical piece. So that's when we started seeing again the big uptick of SEL programs and understanding that they were a really exciting possibility for all schools.
So Diane, it's like the school lunch program, right? When we know that kids are nourished and well fed, same thing. They're
Thank you.
able to have their academic achievement goes up too.
I really think of it almost as a version of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I mean, when we do think about mental well-being, we think about connection and belonging as like critical foundational needs. And SEL is something that supports that. So I am going to transition now to my co-presenters.
And I think Michelle might actually...
Michelle, is this your slide?
This is my slide, and I have to apologize if you hear some barking dogs in the background.
Sorry.
I'm zooming in from home, so
There
my
we go.
apologies. Okay, so we just wanted to share with you a bit about our committee process, about recruitment, who our members were, and the voices that participated in this process. So we sent out surveys to our community in May of 2023, so the end of last school year. And we ended up getting volunteers that were teachers, student advocates, child development specialists, behavioral health specialists, and educational assistants. We had representation across all levels, K through 12. And we met every other week for an hour and a half, September through January, and then some. We've been still meeting, groups of us since then. We're gonna try to do a little co-presenting from two different places, so I'm gonna hand it over to Carrie now.
This is a list of our committee members, and I just wanted to show that it is a robust group that's well represented across the district in many different roles, and we came together in whole groups sometimes. We broke off into smaller groups sometimes to look a little bit more in depth at certain pieces of things, and we just are really grateful for the time in the process. We got to slow down and really not rush through this process, which felt really good. And there's just many voices across the district that are so passionate about this. And so this is just a little bit about that. Yeah.
So when we gathered for the first time as a committee, we talked about the fact that so many of us in the room had not been taught about teaching social emotional learning, or more frequently had not learned these skills in our own school experience. And so the first thing that we wanted to do was make sure that we had a common understanding of what SEL is, specifically Oregon's transformative SEL standards. And we're going to definitely give you guys a handout that explains those standards a little bit more thoroughly. We talked as a group about what our values and priorities would be, and we talked a lot about research and what that research tells us about effective social emotional learning programs and curriculum. We knew that we needed to have some sort of evaluation or assessment tool so that we could really have a clear understanding of the strengths of each of these programs. And so we talked about what sections we would use to put on that assessment tool, what standards we were going to focus on, and how to calibrate amongst members where our focus was and where we felt these programs aligned with our values as a district and with those transformative Oregon standards as well.
And this was the assessment tool that we used to look at several different curriculums. I think we looked at elementary at 4 total and at secondary at 4 also. And we used this assessment tool each time to just kind of rank where we saw all those how those different curriculums lined up with that, and then we calibrated it as a group to come to our conclusions.
So, like Carrie said, we focused on 4 curricula at each level. So for elementary, we looked at ripple effects, second step, which is our current curriculum, primary curriculum, I should say, sources of strength, and Wayfinder. Secondary level, ripples effect, character strong, nexus, and Wayfinder. We separated by level, and we attended virtual my brain just went blank. We had virtual presentations for each of those curriculums. So secondary, we're able to see some presentations for their 4 curriculum, and then the elementary, we were able to meet with those presenters and ask some questions and see their programs.
So for the elementary, our first recommendation was Wayfinder, and second is Second Step. And then for secondary, the recommendation was first was Wayfinder, and second was Character Strong. And this talks a bit about the why of Wayfinder. I'm going to speak a little bit as a classroom teacher and just the accessibility of it for classroom teachers. That there is a really clear, well-defined scope and sequence that goes throughout the school year that's very comprehensive, but there are also a lot of opportunities for supplementation in there, for supplementing for different things that may come up in your classroom. There is a way that's really easy and cool to filter for different amounts of time. You could put in there that you have 10 minutes and want to do something with, no prep or a little prep and different activity types. There's a lot of overlap with PE and health, and that will be nice for those minutes as well. It's very user-friendly and very relationship-focused. I found it to be not just reading from slides or it was very like there's some visual cues to give you that, but it's really about those conversations and the relationship building in the classrooms and throughout the school community.
And I just want to add that Wayfinder has now been adopted by over 40 districts in the state of Oregon. It is moving fast and furious. Part of it is they're very aligned with the transformative SEL standards. One of the things that I think is really, or a number of the things really unique about Wayfinder is they are very, very aligned with developmental milestones with kids. And I think all SEL curriculum should be, but what we have seen with some of the curriculums out there is that there's real misses with kids. And the minute you're dealing with this kind of content and you start a lesson that has an image or an activity that's a turnoff, especially in middle or high school, you have lost the lesson. So, yeah.
Can you give an example of that?
Of what will so for instance, if you have a visual image, and really what we want is lots of different kinds of learning, right? We want to get up and move, we want visual, we want auditory, we want reading, we want, collaborative, we want to really mix it up with SEL. But like something where we might lose, a lesson is if a visual demonstrating a certain interaction in this era of memes and how quickly things shift and move. A class can just go, oh my God, I can't believe that, right?
Because it's so old or so passé or...
Yes, all sorts of things.
Okay.
What I really love about Wayfinder is they've got a big, strong team that is working constantly to keep things current and relevant. I also want to just say they have, not just like Carrie said, scope and sequence, they have a bank of 400 different activities, anywhere from 0 prep to maybe 5-10 minutes prep that we can add on within. We can filter according to what we're looking for. And they also have collections, which we've listed on this slide, which are really, really critical, that go beyond kind of those core standards, which many curriculums do. We have some financial literacy embedded in this, which is wonderful. We have career and college embedded in this, which is also wonderful because we really need to build that in this district. Digital citizenship, which is critical. This is where many of our children live now and have their social relationships. So if we're not addressing that, we're missing a big, big, big piece. And so what we love about this is that we don't feel like we're reinventing the wheel. We're taking a core curriculum somewhere and then going, oh, but we need this. Oh, but we need bullying prevention. Oh, but we need some of this. This is giving us access. They're bringing this giant menu of possibilities together. I will say, too, for our high school group, we know our biggest challenge is going to be at high school, secondary level. We had a science teacher on the committee, and we had an ELE teacher on the committee. And it was just incredible. Our science teacher said, well, I want a 10-minute lesson on collaboration that takes 0 prep. I teach 10th grade science. Filter, 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 boom. There were like 3 activities right in front of her, and she's like, oh my God, this is incredible. I could do this. This is a science teacher, right, who when we say at first, we say, oh, you're going to be incorporating a little social emotional. Let me just back up and say everyone teaches social emotional. We all teach social emotional because that is the way we live. We're social animals. We're constantly guiding, modeling, all that. But what we know the research tells us is that explicit instruction with practice is very powerful. And that is what we need in these days when we're getting less and less of that natural practice that kids are doing through natural free play, not in front of a screen. So,
Diane, does this include also drug use prevention?
I do believe they do have a whole section on executive function, which sings to my heart because that's around ADHD. I don't know. I actually don't know, Jill. So that's a really good question. And obviously that's a big, big content area that we want to make sure is looking good in our health, but also in our general kind of confidence to be able to talk about responsibly. So that's a good question.
No, I don't think you can see the Zoom screen. It looked like Michelle was jumping out of her skin to add something earlier. Were you raising your hand?
Michelle, did you just search it?
No, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to jump in and say that the word we were all looking for in regards to that feeling when the middle schoolers are like, oh, it's cringy. That's what they would say. It's cringy. And it's very, very true. And I think that speaks to a slide that we're going to see in just a second about our current curriculum, second step. So I'll hold on a second and jump back in.
Yeah, we've been told that's cringy sometimes.
Can I add one quick thing? I think there's something magical about the fact that the elementary group and the secondary group recommended the same curriculum. There's something really lovely about having that articulation K-12, and I think one of the reasons that really spoke to the secondary group, not only the breadth and ease, but also what I was thinking about with the cringy piece was the age appropriateness. Sometimes what we run into with middle school students and high school students is if an image looks too young or reminds them of something that they did in elementary school, they're not going to engage with that. So that is something Wayfinder does really, really well. And it's one of the few programs that has a well-developed, evidence-based backing at secondary. Secondary didn't look at second steps because that doesn't exist at secondary. So really excited about the K-12 continuum.
I will say it was developed through an innovation kind of incubator project at Stanford at School of Ed, and is based in and supported through ongoing collaboration and research with 2 professors and researchers at Stanford, and I forget where. I know there's a 3rd woman who's a big part of their kind of research pool there. Thank you, Erica. All right, anything else? We can say more about that later. Ooh, now I am getting close to time. Okay, here's just a quick image. We've gone over Wayfinder. Michelle, you're on.
Yeah, so second step has been the primary social emotional learning curriculum that we've had in the Ashland School District K through 5 for what, about 15 years, Diane, would you say?
I think 20 at least. Yeah.
20, yeah, for a long time. And it certainly has some strengths, but there are also some gaps. And one of those is exactly what we were just talking about. It is very much, especially the new curriculum, it has shifted. They really adapted to the COVID situation. And so they turned a very hands-on, puppet-based curriculum into a digital curriculum, which was very good because it was accessible, right? But now that we're back in person, it's very much like a PowerPoint presentation. And the images are very, very young. And as we even get into that 4th and 5th level, we lose a lot of engagement with this curriculum. And so it's been really tricky, and we've had to fill in gaps. So we've supplemented with curriculums like Mind Up, which is a neuroscience-based curriculum, with Sources of Strength, which is a wonderful supplementary curriculum that focuses on suicide prevention and mental health. But again, we wanted something that was more holistic, that met the developmental needs of all of our students, and that was engaging and really accessible for teachers and for parents, which is a really big part of Wayfinder, is that parent education piece. So that's it.
All right, Character Strong was our second choice for secondary. Second Step was our second choice for primary. It's a really strong curriculum. It was actually developed, it's one of the few curriculums that was actually developed at the secondary level rather than primary. Many of our SEL curriculums kind of grew out and were extended from elementary up to secondary, and that's kind of been a complaint over the years. This curriculum was actually developed at the secondary level by high school teachers. So it's got a lot of great qualities to it. We did purchase it, I think it was 2021, and used it, but I will not say with fidelity, but we did use it at AHS and AMS a bit during distance learning. But given what that year was, we didn't really do it justice. Got mixed reviews, but we do feel like in terms of what we looked at and what we researched, that would be our second choice. So we are recommending as a committee that we purchase Wayfinder K through 12. I will, and then what we would like to do is we do have Sources of Strength through an Oregon Health Authority grant. We've had quite a few people trained. We aren't going to go into that. And we have all the materials at the elementary, and through the peer leadership group at the high school, we want to implement Sources of Strength as a complement focused on connection and mental health. We do have mental health pieces in Wayfinder, but Sources of Strength structures differently, and we have teachers and counselors who are feeling like it offers some really wonderful supplementary lessons. So that's what we're recommending. And Erica's gonna finish us up.
Yeah, so we are getting ready. It's not ready yet, but we're getting ready for the public viewing of these curriculums. Mark is, it's all electronic, so none of these have physical components. So we're getting it all set up on the website. It's going to take Mark a little bit of time to get that all up and organized, but hopefully soon, and we'll send out an announcement when it's ready. We'll also set up times where the curriculum can be viewed at the district office on a computer. So for folks who can't access it at home, we will have it set up in the district office with ways to provide feedback so that you all can consider that for when it is time for you to actually make a vote. I don't know, we might have to wait until May to do the vote, because I don't know that we're going to have 30 full days is for policy for feedback, because it's going to take us a little bit of time to get that up. So May should be just fine. But all three of the first and second choice at both levels will be available for viewing, and we will take feedback on that. But the committee was united in Wayfinder being the top recommendation, so we're asking folks to really focus on that. But all of the materials will be available, and then we will return likely in May. It says April, but I didn't do the math very well, so likely we'll return in May for an official vote, and hopefully at that time public comment will be positive and your all's review will be positive, and we will be able to take that to a vote and actually adopt the curriculum and begin the implementation planning process.
All right, thank you. I mean, I know our questions are always going to start with a very basic one. Is there a big cost difference between these curricula that we're looking at as far as your first and second choices? And what would the difference be between those?
There isn't. I can answer that. There's not a big cost difference there. When we look at second step and we really look at if we were paying for it we've only paid through it K through 8, but if we were spending it, paying for it K through 12, which it doesn't exist, right? We'd be spending about the same amount of money. Character Strong, about the same amount of money.
Okay, thank you.
How much is it?
A lot.
Yeah.
No. So it is $10 per child. So we have about 2,500 students. So if we were to buy it per year, it'd be $2,500. If we buy it by 3 years, which Eric and I've talked about, we get a 10% discount. So it'd come out to be about $67.50 for 3 years. And what we are getting for that, which we don't have quite the breadth of in the other curriculums, is we get we get a whole parent access piece of this, and staff kind of support also. We get our professional development included, which kind of front loads us in August, returns in the fall, returns in the spring, to kind of layer, just like we did with our math curriculum, and that is also what Wayfinder would include in that package. Yeah. So $6,750.
All right, it's a bargain.
I mean, 67,000. Sorry,
Just say,
I missed a zero. Oh, it's only $1 a student. Oh my God, if anybody from Wayfinder was watching, they'd be like, oh, Diane, what are you doing to us?
Yeah.
Cringe.
Yeah, cringy. Any other questions?
I have 3 questions that are kind of related. First of all, just what are the expectations about who is going to be teaching SEL? Are all teachers going to be required at all levels to teach SEL? Classroom, sort of special areas, specific content teachers at the high school. How much time per day is going to be required? So I'm just kind of curious, where does this fit in the day of a teacher?
So I'm going to just answer very quickly, and then Erica can answer. And I know we're past our time, and we can certainly take more time in April or May to kind of, talk more about implementation. But that's a very good question. Because when we think about transformative SEL at the elementary level, which is so foundational, right? It's not a 20-minute one-off a week. And that at some places has been kind of what we've been allocated. So we had this mandate from Oregon Department of Education, but per usual, nothing about, you're going to get all sorts of extra time during the day to do this. Or, by the way, we're going to give you a load of money to do this.
This is an unfunded mandate?
Yes.
Okay. Of course.
Kind of like Addie's Act. Which was my other big, It's like, we need you to do this and push this in. So one of the things we need to really think about as we do this is our teachers' well-being and mental health.
Yeah.
Because our teachers are maxed out. right? I mean, we know that. They're very tired. They feel like there's more and more and more. So that's where I think we come to our leaders in our community and we ask ourselves, what's most important? And how do we puzzle this together? Because we can't get more room out of finite amounts of day. We just can't. So one of the beautiful things about SEL is it crosswalks with health, which is great. There's a lot of crosswalking of standards, so we can double dip there. A lot of this SEL can embed in not very nicely in some core content areas, like I just brought up the science. We can actually use 10-minute breaks at the high school level and pull up some math-oriented activities that do all sorts of things. They kind of recalibrate us. I love that I have Alan here because Alan knows all about integration, and whole child teaching and how successful that is. I think these are really important but complex conversations. But what we do know is however we do this, it needs to be go slow to go far. And I borrow that from Sources of Strength, and saying that when we bring something like this on, it's not something that we say, oh gosh, we want every single one of these teachers, doing this by the end of this year, because it's just, we're going to have folks who have more aptitude and ability, and their roles lend themselves to that. We're going to have folks who we do expect to do it, but need more support. And then we're going to have folks who really don't want to do it or have anything to do with it and don't believe in it. Right. That is the reality, and feel like this, even here in this district, and feel very, very frustrated with that piece. So we have some work to do. But the science, the social science, tells us that we need this, and we need to make this a priority, especially because our children are getting less and less and less free play. They're getting less and less unstructured time. They're getting less and less face-to-face time to develop these skills in the most natural way they typically did 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. So that's why this has to be a teacher support piece, a parent support piece, and a student support piece. Those are my thoughts. So no easy answer. No easy answer.
I have a question. Michelle has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add that we, the committee and the counseling and behavioral health department and many of our teachers have been talking about that exact question. How are we going to fit this into an already very full day and week? And how are we not going to overload and burn out our teachers? And there's a lot of ideas and there's a lot of models that, we're open to trying. We don't have any one answer yet because, it's pretty brand new at the high school. And so we're at different stages of implementation with SEL across the district, but it's certainly a huge priority to figure out how best to roll this out in a way that doesn't feel like a burden to our educators.
And I would say from a classroom teacher, I would love to have SEL in my schedule every single day. So I would, I know right now we have about a once a week chunk of time that we can do it from between 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on grade level. But I would ask for half an hour a day. Just start the day with SEL, and it could be a structured lesson. It could be something that's coming up in the classroom. There's just all kinds of ways, and I think getting us all on the same page just then gets kids in a place where they can access the rest of their day and education. So, yeah.
Russell. I just have a question about implementation and give it a little bit of context. I think I'm really excited about the idea of incorporating SEL and anything that helps our children feel mentally a little bit more robust and are getting some more support with that. But my question, how is the first choice, like Wayfinder, intended to be implemented? Like, what's their best practice that they define for implementation? And does that meet up with the challenges that we're seeing for?
So Wayfinder, which is really logical has many different suggestions for implementation models because it really depends on the district, it depends on the school site. So they are incredibly flexible and creative in their support with onboarding. And in fact, at the end of April, they're inviting all of the newly adopted districts to send a team and to actually participate in a day-long kind of overview and planning session to kind of jumpstart, the summer or fall kind of, implementation, whatever that looks like, best fit at your district. So that's not an easy answer, but what I would say is it's logical because it has to be flexible. If some districts are just starting here, and thinking we're going to have a slow growth model with those early adopters and then we're going to grow it out, that's what fits for them. I think that we're beyond that because we have pretty robust SEL buy-in and implementation in our elementaries. We have it going on in our middle school at this point also in all of our classes. The idea, the best practice model, Russell, is that teachers teach it. That's the best practice. Is that always going to happen? Maybe not, but the reason that is because then we actually learn as we're teaching, and we're actually then beginning to integrate the language and the concepts into the rest of the week. So it's a really different kind of learning. We can reference something we discussed on Monday on Tuesday afternoon, that kind of thing, as we loop around. So that's a really different kind of learning than having a specialist come in once a week and deliver a lesson and then leave. That being said, our counselors, our child development specialists, are anticipating doing a lot of push-in so that not only co-facilitating, modeling, but also moving in to do additional kind of higher stress lessons. When we're talking about maybe mental health or Aaron's Law. There's all sorts of different kinds of content that, for good reason, teachers might feel like I need some help with, or I need you to take this. So a real collaborative effort, yeah.
So I'm super concerned about the drug use that's happening at the high school, and what I see is that, what I saw from the Lund report was that it said that the prevention efforts are really embedded into SEL. So I just would love to hear 30 days from now when you come back, like how that piece is going to be included in this
Jill,
curriculum.
I think a lot of what we think about in terms of the elementary level is really that basic core SEL is prevention, because ultimately we move toward responsible decision making, which is really critical thinking, right?
It's more the high school I'm concerned about.
Well, no, I'm going to move back, and I'm going to really push hard and say we actually need to be doing this in elementary. Yeah. And we need to be, and from a medical model, we need to be doing it from elementary. But when I looked at health standards in Oregon, we don't see drug and alcohol covered in health standards. Although I did just discover 2 excellent curriculums, I think, free from Stanford, that do cover elementary THC and vaping, which is a start, because we are starting to see that even at late elementary, okay?
So Sources of Strength does not, because according to that report, it says that Ashland School District does cover prevention in elementary level with Sources of Strength, but maybe it's included in the curriculum, but not.
You mean in terms of drug and alcohol?
Yeah.
I am not aware of what we're doing with drug and alcohol at the elementary level right now.
No,
I'm not.
I'm seeing lots of no head shakes.
Yeah. And I think because, honestly, the reason I think it's important is because we have to help parents have conversations in elementary. If you are not having a conversation as a parent, and these conversations have to happen. There's no once, twice, 3 times. They move developmentally with a child. And if you're having your first conversation in 9th grade, I'm sorry, it's too late. Mm-hmm. I want you to, if you've never had one. Yeah. And then I want you to have a lot. But in terms of prevention, we have to start having developmentally appropriate conversations with our children much, much, much younger.
Yeah.
Because we are not just exposed to it in our environment, we are exposed to it in our social media world. And we have lots and lots and lots of 10, 11, and 12-year-olds now on social media and seeing all sorts of images and not understanding it, not developmentally being able to begin to comprehend without adult education, conversation, reflection. So the grown-ups have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I would also say, decision making is a big part of the SEL curriculum that does tie into this starting in kindergarten. But we'd be happy to take a look at where that falls into Wayfinder and bring that back to you in 30 days, or when we come back for the actual adoption. And also, you have access to the materials. Should have been in your packet, so feel free to dig around and take a look and see what you see as holes also. And all of that work would be done in combination with our health teachers, which is where the standards live at the secondary level around drug and alcohol prevention.
I have a couple questions. I like our process as a district for curriculum adoption. I think it's thorough and thoughtful and transparent. I am glad to hear that you're excited about your top choice, and I'm wondering, I'm glad that we give people the chance to review it online, but is there a possibility to do that facilitated? Because just being able to view it on computer is not the same thing as experiencing what that's like facilitated. Like, I know as a board member, I would love a chance to hear what you're excited about.
So I would be more than happy. In fact, the founder and his team would be more than happy to join us via Zoom in either April or May, whatever the date works, and actually walk us through. They were actually even happy and willing to show up tonight, even though they're in different places. And I said, no, this isn't the time or the place. So, and I think they're the experts at that. So if that would be helpful, we could schedule a little bit of time for them in.
I think we can talk about that for agenda or maybe even work session or something, because it feels like that would be helpful for us to share in your excitement, and also for parents and for teachers if we're looking at buy-in. I would like to hear more in April about implementation plan, even if it's here's a bunch of different ways that we might try it.
Sure.
But I'm also curious about, so I understand how we adopt curriculum, but how do we evaluate? What's the period and process for evaluating how it's working for kind of all the layers that we had in the SEL? So looking at how is it working for students? How is it working for teachers in the classroom? How is it working at the school level? How is it working at home? What is our evaluation method for seeing over the next?
So like a post-adoption, you mean?
Yeah, post-adoption. How do we know that what we chose is working?
Well, we have all sorts of data we can look at. Wayfinder itself embeds both formative and summative assessments, so that we can take formative assessments every week if we want. They're very, very brief from the students. They're like 5 or 6 questions. And we can also, there's summative assessments. We can graph it. We can look at children individually, by group, by grade, by gender, by ethnicity, by age. I mean, we can do whatever we want with that data and say, wow, are they growing in these core areas according to these measures? I think some of the other ways we hope that it's impacting is, honestly, and what the research tells us, is increased attendance. Now, there's all sorts of confounding variables to that. So can we really say, oh, that's our SEL curriculum? No, but could we say, wow, if we're surveying our kids or our parents and we're seeing a little bit more engagement, then we see attendance go up, right? What SEL tends to do is create connections often between core content, the why. What I love about Wayfinder is Wayfinder has added a 6th standard, which is something that is addressing this big sense of unanchoredness in our adolescents right now, and that is purpose. And there's a lot of research coming out on purpose right now, and that a lot of our young people are feeling really overwhelmed by the bigness of information. Like, literally, our brains don't process as much information. We're not given, what we're built for. So there's a lot to process, and there's obviously a lot of overwhelm in terms of the global and the national news and what's coming up around the corner for this generation. It's not what it was for any of us here in terms of our coming of age time. It's just not. So part of our challenge as educators is to be relevant and be current with our children, and to really try to empathize with them and get into their skins and their experience and think, what does this world look like to them? And then how do we shape our parenting and our education to meet them where they are, so that when they come of age at 18, 19, 20, they can feel that optimism and that sense of connection to something that is good and big and limitless, right? So what I do love about Wayfinder is there's a lot of work on purpose, on agency and purpose. Because when we look again at the research, we see a lot of our kids feeling a lack of sense of what is this all about? What's the point?
So I just want to propose, I mean, this is obviously a big and very important topic. I would kind of like to see us maybe have that sort of a demonstration at a work session maybe in April.
Yeah, that's what I'd
if everybody would agree to that, and then we can sort of continue having a little bit more of a deeper dive into
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm sorry we went way over.
So,
Erica knows this about me. Erica, just say stop, Diane.
So, I mean, actually, Dan asked a question that I think is pertains to more than just this curriculum adoption.
Right. I think that's a big question too.
Really big question. So I don't know if that's an Erica question. Certainly not for this moment, but really important.
Yeah, can we talk about that?
So we are adopting curriculum. We're making big curriculum adoptions, and we don't know what the post-adoption assessments look like. And so, could we please have that at another board meeting? It'd really be helpful to know what what we have in place, and if we don't, then what are we going to have in place?
Okay, I think that's wonderful.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
and
think
we do have a plan
that's
for
some
that.
great homework.
Happy to speak to it in the work session.
Cool.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
you.
All right. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for letting us go beyond.
Thank you.
Bye, Michelle. Thank you. Bye, Erica.
Okay, so we will move on to our recurring reports. Let's start with our AHS student report.
Sweet. So Hank and Noah are both out tonight, so
we got some guest speakers.
All right, so AHS just had our classified staff appreciation, and leadership hung up a bunch of individual posters for them to really just honor all of the hard work they do for our district. And then we had our first career day since COVID, and that was a huge success. Students really loved seeing all the different booths and places that they could go explore different career pathways. Oregon Battle of the Books team won region, our Region 5 championships, and they're headed to state in April, so that's really exciting. And then our DECA team went to state, and 18 people placed top 20 in their category, including 2 seniors, Junie and Sky, who are headed to nationals, so that's really exciting. Yeah.
Can you just remind us what DECA is?
Honestly, it's not something I have a lot of background in, but it's basically, from talking to friends that do it, it's like many, almost like business platforms that you present to a panel of judges to kind of sell and market an idea, or, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, an idea or a business as a almost smaller model of owning a business and selling stuff, which it seems like a really cool thing. It's a lot of speech and debate components, a lot of selling components. So it's just
Very
how well you
practical.
can present your ideas and formulate your thoughts and present, just sell your things, which we seem to be pretty good at, because this is the second year we've made it to nationals that I know of. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
We have Matilda, the musical, which is running until this Sunday. I overheard in the library today. That was pretty awesome. So,
It is amazing.
yeah, sweet. Check that out. Winter sports are just wrapped up. We did pretty good. 3 wrestler boys went to state, and then Will Downs placed 4th. Our snowboard team is currently at state. They also had a successful auction fundraiser last Friday night. And then,
yeah, at Scout, it was very fun.
So good to hear. And then a double podium sweep at a tournament in the weekend of February 17th, 18th, which is pretty sweet. A senior, Aiden Espinoza, placed 4th in the state swim championships. And then softball, baseball, and track have all started to finish our last season of sports for this year. Yeah. that's it from the high school.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next up we have a report with Alan Porowski.
Thanks. Only 2 pages today. The district asked both unions about a potential cut day on April 22nd, which is the snow day makeup. OSEA and AEA have pushed out a survey to determine how members feel about donating a day, which is equivalent to 0.5% of salary through a furlough day in a collective effort to help with balancing the budget. We're still tabulating the results on this internal fundraiser proposal, and we'll be able to let the district know by Friday if members can afford a collective financial sacrifice towards offsetting operational costs. We are grateful for the contract language that requires the district to negotiate cut days with both unions. So that was the main topic of conversation at the last meeting. Ashland Connect, Amanda, the Ashland Connect teacher, was able to attend an amazing digital and hybrid learning national conference in Austin, Texas. Recently, by securing funding through a grant and the SOESD, she's excited to bring back a lot of information to the Enrollment Innovation Committee. Yay, innovation committees. And to start to build a strong foundation for Ashland Connect to retain current students as well as to help draw in the 280 plus potential students who reside in Ashland but are not currently attending our schools. If we can move our program from the post-COVID response model to a viable alternative choice for families, we may be able to bring back many of those students to our district. Ashland Connect has also been grateful to join both Walker and Trails on many fun field trips with AC students lately, including the SOU women's basketball game, ice skating, and various hikes. Willow Wind says conferences were well attended with teachers fully utilizing the 3 allotted days to meet with families. Because of the team approach at Willow Wind, teachers conference with their core group, but may also meet with families of students in other classes. Last week, the entire student body came together to show appreciation of our classified staff by writing notes and cards, singing, and creating art. Oh, we didn't sing at high school. Each student brought in a piece of fresh fruit, and these were divided up and placed into festive baskets for our wonderful EAs, office, and janitorial staff members to take home. We appreciate everything they do for our school and our students. Over at AMS, the Drama Club presented SpongeBob the Musical last weekend. While one day was canceled because of snow, they are rescheduling that performance. Over 180 students have signed up for track and are excited to get started. Dr. Geneva Craig came to speak about her experiences marching on the famous Selma to Montgomery March. School-wide, students explored the civil rights era before her visit and were well versed in the significance of Miss Craig's experience. The AMS band will be performing on March 14th at 7 p.m. Oops. And all are welcome. Bellevue. Many students attended a women's basketball game at SOU last month. That was a great success. Students walked, used public transportation and school buses to travel to the game. We're hoping for the whole school to attend next year. We're hosting a family science night at ScienceWorks next week and are preparing for the Changemaker March by highlighting one of our staff's tie-dye skills to help make shirts for all students. Members of our staff are still anxious and saddened about the number of EAs being cut next year, and we are not looking forward to having less support for students and losing incredible people that care deeply for children. Over at Hellman, the Dragons enjoyed showering our classified staff with lots of love, love, love during Classified Appreciation Week. We wouldn't be us without all of them. We are holding collective space for the stress and grief our classified folks and all of us are feeling with the EA cuts next year. Affinity groups, junior coaches, walk and roll, Lego club, spring music concert, STEM fair, field trips, state testing, computational thinking lessons, math studio, SART lessons, change maker activities. Lots of good stuff happening at Hellman. That's an elementary school, all that stuff. Congrats to Hellman's OBOB team for their regional win. They get to represent our school district for the 2nd consecutive year at the state competition. Go Ashland. Trails is looking forward to our Spring Sing next Wednesday, the 20th. The event will take place in the middle school commons with a performance from each class. We have also started our school-wide unit on light and sound. This current week, we are having our Sources of Strength Spirit Week, And Monday is pajama day, Tuesday is wear any color day, Wednesday is cool hair day, and Thursday is match with your friends day. Walker, all of Walker School went to a really fun SOU women's basketball game. That was the place to be, apparently. It was amazing, and we all had such a great time. Teachers are feeling overwhelmed with the amount of professional development days that require them to be away from their classrooms with no additional time to prepare for their subs. As well, student behavior has been challenging when both of the grade level teachers are gone. Teachers are very grateful for the time to connect with students and families during our spring conference, and we're pleased with the amount of families that attended. And you all covered high school very well, except Brain Bowl is this Saturday over at SAU, and hopefully we'll bring back the trophy. It sits in the high school when we win it, and then she takes it away. So she just took it away. Hopefully we'll get it back.
So when is that? It's on Saturday?
Saturday, yeah. So from 8 to about 4.
We're missing that. Too bad.
But if we get into the top 2, we'll be on TV, and that's when you can watch it.
That's fun.
So yeah, that's the fun one. So. Yeah. Right.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Do people use that word anymore?
Okay. Next up, we have OSCA report with Stephen Essick.
Hello. OSCA Chapter 42 officially started our bargaining with the district this month on March 5th. The official bargaining updates are going to be posted on the Ashland School District homepage under the OSCA bargaining updates for anybody listening. In our first meeting, we agreed which articles are going to be opened and shared some proposals. 19 out of our 22 articles were agreed to be opened, with just 3 articles. Article 1 on recognition, Article 17 strikes and lockouts, and Article 21 separability of provisions. Those are going to remain as they are. During our first round of bargaining, we made some good strides, and even TA'd tentatively agreed on our proposal for Article 12, which is about holidays. And we're glad to be officially adding Juneteenth to our holiday roster and providing time for families to celebrate the liberation of enslaved people, the end of U.S. chattel slavery, and a momentous occasion for the working class that built this country. So OSCA Chapter 42 looks forward to continuing our bargaining as we meet for the next session this upcoming Tuesday. Classified Appreciation Week, which people alluded to, was March 4th to March 8th, and classified staff across all our sites were really thankful for the communities that came together to honor and celebrate our members. We look forward to sharing that kindness with our certified staff, friends, during Certified Teachers Appreciation Week, which is May 6th, May 10th to May 10th. It's Youth Truth survey time across all the sites, so we encourage families to talk to their students and complete the family surveys that were sent out. The information that comes from those are a great resource for us to improve the access our programs. So more participation, the better, and we love just getting more voice from the community. We already talked about the Oregon Battle of the Books. Hellman Dragons, 5th grade, they took first in regionals. Ashland High School, they took first in regionals as well, so they're going to both be going to state. And I hear Ashland Middle School is competing later this weekend, so we wish them well and hope they have a lot of fun. Ashland High School's theater department is currently presenting Matilda the Musical. We've already talked about it, but we encourage people to check it out. It's a really great production. Tickets and showtimes can be found on ashlandhs.booktix.net. That's booktix.net. There's a show tonight. There's a show tomorrow at 7, and then Saturday there's a double feature, 2 p.m. and another at 7 p.m. And then the last show is going to be Sunday at 2. Huge shout out to our OSCA member, Nathan Yankee, the theater coordinator, who's done so much work to make these productions happen. He trains students how to be safe in the scene shop. We're really lucky to have him along with our theater director, Sean. But Nathan, just want to celebrate him because he's one of our OSCA members and love him. March 21st, Bellevue's organizing the Family Science Night. We just love that partnership that we have with ScienceWorks and sharing our vision of inspiring learning for life. So we hope people can get to that. And then lastly, spring break is coming up at the end of the month. Some of our staff are going to be still working through spring break, especially our custodians and all of those guys who are still at the schools, just keeping it running. But we hope our community, staff, and students have a safe and relaxing break.
Thank you. All right, moving on to board report. Would anybody like to start us off?
I can start. Well, I thought that after we selected the next superintendent, it was going to be smooth sailing. I thought we were going to have very little work done. I thought we were going to be able to coast, but no.
You haven't been on vacation?
Not been on vacation. So I counted up my hours because I was curious about it. About 30 hours in the past month on board work, not counting a 3-day conference for student success in Portland. So that is a bunch of things: enrollment innovation committee, Jackson County Library visioning session, a board work session, behavioral health summit that we got to go to that was awesome. That was an all-day thing. All-day union bargaining observation and an afternoon session of that. PTC meeting, another innovation full committee meeting, and countless drive time calls for Sunstone Housing Collaborative, which is an outgrowth of the Innovation Committee on Enrollment Subcommittee for Housing.
Thank you, Dan.
Wow. I cannot compete with that.
Well, it's not a competition. I'm not proud of that.
All right. So on April 15th, I dropped in on Walker Elementary School Science Night at ScienceWorks, and it was just fun to see the kids are so comfortable in that space, and they're so engaged, and they're just running around having a good time. So I really enjoyed that. On February 26th, I went to an all-day event put on by the SOESD on, it's being called now Career Connected Learning. Really cool. Brainstorming about how K-12 we're going to be looking at implementing CTE and connecting learning to outcomes that can be really beneficial post-high school. I saw students from Eagle Point and South Medford talk about their CTE classes and how much it affected them both in preparing for a career and for college. I'm hoping maybe Ashland will be involved in that in the future. And on March 1st, thanks to Rebecca and Steve over there, they led a tour for the Soroptimists on the remodeled schools. It was wildly successful. They are incredible hosts. And I'm excited that they've connected with some realtors and are going to do some tours for realtors. I think that is the next step in what we need to do to enhance student enrollment and bring families to our community. I think with real estate agents seeing how incredible our schools look, it should be a selling point for them. So that's what I did.
Go ahead, Russell.
Okay. Let's see, in no particular order, I did sit in on an all-day session observing bargaining, which was, I just felt really privileged to be in the room and be able to see the dynamics firsthand, and also just see everybody working really hard to come to a positive starting point, I guess, for bargaining the day that I was there, and just a lot of commitment and a lot of heart from everybody in the room, which is really wonderful. And I hope to sit on more of those as it continues. And then I got to go to the 5th and middle school strings performance. That was really fun, including there's a 5th grader who is phenomenal and did this crazy solo. It was awesome. So kudos to Lauren and her program. It's really, really wonderful. And then beyond that, doing a little bit of work with the Innovation Committee, continuing to tie up our project and hopefully get close to presenting to the board pretty soon. And also got to meet with Erica from the Ashland Schools Foundation and just develop a little bit of a connection there. She's a really wonderful resource, and nice to get to know her and try to coordinate a little bit better in the future.
Awesome. Let's see. Yeah, I went with Dan to the Behavior Health Summit, which I absolutely love. It's like this convergence of all the different partners that work in behavior health in Southern Oregon, and it was just a wealth of information and all the amazing work they're doing with schools in Southern Oregon and what's available. Also got to go to the Jeff Merkley Town Hall. I was lucky enough to get a ticket pulled and got to ask him a question, naturally asked about how the government is supporting public school. Also went to ASF board meeting and met with Maslow's project to make sure that the housing on school district property is going to meet their needs. And then also got to go to the amazing track meet, which was awesome. I mean, Ashland is such this hub of amazing talent, and there was this 6th grade girl who was, you know, I think she finished 2 laps ahead of a majority of the second place. Everyone else. She's like the fastest runner in the state, Debbie knows, in the nation. Yeah, she's a 6th grader at our school. I had no idea, but she was really fun to watch. So, yeah.
All right, thank you, Jill. All right, so I have a couple of quick, just kind of good news things, and this was already touched upon. I got to be a moderator for the Walker OBOB tournament, and that is just always like one of the highlights of my year. I just look forward to that so much. The kids are so enthusiastic, and it's just the best. It's so much fun. And then I took the high school team to the regional championship, which, as you heard, they won, so we get to go to states. Yay! And I will follow up on your statement about the 5th grade string. So I went to the high school orchestra concert, and I mean, I just love Lauren so much, and it was so much fun. The audience was actually heckling. Have you ever seen heckling at an orchestra concert? I mean, it's just such a nice environment. Everybody's so enthusiastic. They love each other. It was heckling. It was just hilarious. And but even more important, so this past weekend was the yearly, they call it the Solo and Ensemble Festival, where the students compete either as soloists or in groups to get to the state championships as performers. So there are 6 categories for the strings, and Ashland won 4 of those categories: solo violin, solo cello, solo bass, and also the small strings ensemble, and they came in 2nd for the large string ensemble. But this is unprecedented. I mean, that was like world domination level events there. It was really amazing. All we were missing was viola, and we would have just had the full suite. So it was really exciting to see. And I mean, as you said, the talent in our district is just amazing. And even more than that, just the enthusiasm and the love of, you know, these events is just really nice to see. And most importantly, we have a special guest with us here tonight who I just can't wait to bring up. Can you please come up? Dr. Joseph Hatrick is here tonight. Welcome to your first official board meeting, and I will let you introduce yourself, but we are so excited to have you here.
It is great to be here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Joseph Hatrick. Future superintendent, let's make it clear, Sam is still your superintendent for a while, but I'm really excited to take the helm July 1st. Incredibly excited to tour all of the schools tomorrow. Was really appreciative of a confidential process, but the downfall was that I didn't get to enter any buildings. So, I mean, community members may have been making phone calls to the district office, seeing cars, you know, circling the buildings. All I could see was the outside. So, really excited to see the inside and meet students and staff tomorrow. So, we're just here getting a feel for the community this week and weekend, and seeing the schools. So, really just excited to get a feel. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I hear you're going to see Matilda, so that's great.
Going to see
So
Matilda
much
on
fun.
Saturday afternoon, yes.
Excellent.
Really excited.
It's a really fun show.
Yep. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah.
Again, oh, and I'm going to throw out one more thing, because as you know, I have a high school student who has been through some very, very difficult times this past year. And he is back with us, and he is feeling great. And he is, thank you. He is performing on Saturday at 3 with the Rogue Valley Symphonic Band at the Music Center at SOU. He will be doing a bassoon concerto, and I know he would just love to get as much support out there as you guys are able to give. And anyway, it's been very nice to be home and finally, hopefully, have most of this behind us.
Touch your back.
Thank you. Okay, next we are up to the student board rep report, which we will again turn over to our able reps over there.
Not a ton going on here. It's a lot of this like brewing college decisions and career decisions that everyone can feel coming. Some people are deciding that now. On top of that, looking for future board representatives. So we've been talking to some people that we think would be a good fit.
Very excited
and
to
kind
hear
of
about that.
giving them the spiel, telling them to hopefully come watch in the next couple of months. save the dates for the benefit ball, should be going out soon on May 18th, so mark your calendars. And then I had the opportunity to meet with BSU to talk about a potential SRO enactment, which was super informative, and it was overwhelmingly positive, which was great to hear. There was some conversation, but it was mostly just that sounds great. We have the same concerns as everyone else, and I mean, it all really just comes down to the person as making sure it's not it's somebody that's people can feel that they can connect with. But yeah, it was a really positive interaction. So.
All right, that's really good to hear.
She pretty much covered it. I think you had a superintendent tour today.
Oh, that's actually tomorrow. We got the date wrong.
But
okay, yeah,
right.
I'm meeting with the new superintendent to give you a tour of the high school. I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Excellent. So, and I mean, as you probably know, we are all very excited to also, meet the new representatives for next year. If there's anything we can do, we would be happy to meet with them or come into the leadership class or anything.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Just
we might come with questions or anything.
Yeah, maybe I'll email you guys to see what a good day would be to come in and maybe allow
There's
some
definitely
questions.
a couple really excited students that
Great.
want to be part of this.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, is that it? Yeah. All right, and public comment? I don't believe we have any. No? Thank you. Okay, so next is our district staff updates, and we'll start with superintendent report with Samuel Bogdanoff.
All right. Well, lots of wonderful things going on. I'll try to avoid a little bit of redundancy here, but I want to talk, as Dr. Hattrick mentioned, we're going to be doing a tour tomorrow. We'll start meeting with cabinet. We'll hit all of the schools and very fortunately have some wonderful tour guides, hopefully at the high school and a couple others, we hope, in terms of students actually helping facilitate those tours. We'll have lunch with district office staff and kind of looking forward to that. Dr. Hattrick and I have been working a little bit behind the scenes because I want to keep him informed and engaged in some of the conversations we're having around staffing and making sure that we're setting the district up for success really throughout the transition. So I think that will be work that we'll do ongoing as we kind of move towards July 1. And then we're also talking about the possibility of times, depending, I know Dr. Hattrick is already currently in his previous district still finishing up the year, but the hope is that we might be able to arrange a day or two where he could come down to meet with folks. Tomorrow is going to be a pretty quick tour, but hopefully we can get some additional time if we can make that happen. So excited about that. Wanted to, let's see, one big piece of news. I was able to go up to the Oregon Association of Central Office Administrators Conference last week because one of our own was recognized. For folks who don't know, COSA and OACOA are the administrative professional organization in Oregon. And the OACOA Award of Excellence this year went to our own Assistant Superintendent, Erica Bear, where she was honored by colleagues throughout the state. It's a big deal and incredibly well observed. And the best part about it was, I snuck her to the front of the room. She had no idea. Her family snuck in the back, and it was a big surprise. She was upset about the prize, but grateful for the recognition. So, surprise rather. So that was pretty nice. Boy, our OBOB kids are scary, so I won't elaborate more on that, but in a good way. I did want to assure Dr. Hattrick that if he has opportunity to see Matilda, the Pokey that is portrayed is not an actual place at the high school. So that's good news. DECA, by the way, is Distributive Education Clubs of America, and it really deals with business. And so it's incredible that we've gotten that program back. It is part of our CTE cadre programs, and we're really excited by that and how quickly that's grown. All of our administrative teams, the last 2 days attended, or actually today and tomorrow, are attending threat assessment workshops, which has to do with how we assess when there are individual threats by students or individuals in school. How do we deal with that? How do we process that? So that's really important training for them. Fortunately, it's right over at SOU, so if there is something urgent they need to duck out for, they're able to do that. But we're excited to be able to have that training and have it so close. High school, this is the time of year where if you have a chance to sneak over to the wood shop, you'll find a bunch of kindergartners swinging hammers and using saws, assisted by their high school peers. And I can't tell you what they're working on because that would blow some secrets. So, but it's really, really cool. The last bit I want to say is I think we are within a couple of days of announcing a new hire for the Trails principal. So looking forward to that. We had a robust hiring process, a lot of interest, and should be able to make that announcement relatively soon. So excited about that. And that's it for now, unless there are questions.
All right. Thank you, Samuel. I will say that ear pulling is also not encouraged in our district, for those of you who have seen Matilda.
Definitely not.
Okay, so next we have a capital bond update. We have Steve and Mike ready to go.
Did we do something wrong? Everybody leaving? I think
I won't take it personal.
Yeah, I'll take it personal.
You drive, Jackie.
It's the intermission
doing
time.
that-
Everybody's
while they're
getting
doing
up
that-
for the 7th inning stretch.
Yeah, while they're doing that, I'll echo what Samuel said. I'm thrilled to hear that DECA's back. I was actually a DECA president in college.
Oh, nice.
So I love the organization.
That sounds amazing.
It was.
It does sound cool. I was, yeah. I don't have any.
Perfect. Okay.
How come we're not seeing it on the presentation? Did we change the Zoom?
That's a good question.
I mean, we can jump in. It's just I think the world is seeing a blue screen that says questions.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not sure why it's not broadcasting that.
So the Zoom screen is on there.
Yeah, but it should be on the monitors. It isn't for some reason.
Well, we can jump into it. I believe you guys have
Yeah.
seen the report.
We don't spend a lot of time referencing the report, so we can get started if you'd like. Okay.
Go right ahead.
Thank you once again for having us. We'll wait for Jill to get her Tic Tacs.
You're holding us up.
No worries. Y'all good? We're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. As I promised, these monthly reports are going to get shorter and shorter. We just finished our one-year warranty walk, believe it or not, at Hellman and the middle school and Trails, with the exception of the roof at the middle school, which we're still working through. But yeah, we're really this report's going to get shorter as we get further along. So we're going to dive into this one. This is for February of 24.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. As you mentioned, this is really kind of morphed into somewhat of a high school report at this point. So activities at the high school are moving along well. We are continuing work on the humanities building. Really the focus there, of course, is on the seismic. We're occupying the first and second levels now. The majority of the steel that you see on kind of the exterior of it for the seismic upgrades for the drag beams and the shear walls is going to be installed in the next week with the anticipation to pour the shotcrete, so essentially the concrete coating that's going to encapsulate all that steel over the spring break for those first two floors. So it's going to be kind of a monumental move, and then it'll quickly cover up all of that work, so it won't look like there was much done there, but I think everyone's had the opportunity to see kind of the extent of the steel structure that's there. On the interior of the building, they're continuing to work on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire alarm runs. So all of that is roughed in. So conduits and pipes are in. Getting ready to start pulling wires for all of the upgrades on the interior of that building. Over on the science building, similarly, in the science area, all the demo and abatement is completed over there. And they're starting to put in their pathways for the new electrical and mechanical for the upgrade of the science classrooms. So that's kind of a quick run through from the high school standpoint. Outside of that, we hit kind of another great milestone. The ground-mounted solar array is now live and producing electricity. So to date, we have produced 6,257 kilowatt hours. So that might not mean a lot, but I hope to show it. We'll send out a link, but there's a dashboard where you can kind of view the live stream of what's going on there and how much it's produced.
Okay, you guys might have already seen it.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
it's very cool.
552 gallons of fuel, 261 electric cars, over 1 million smartphones charged. That's kind of the power that's been produced so far. So, a great way to apply that to kind of real life scenarios. So, we do have a kind of kickoff ribbon cutting, if you will, next week. So excited to introduce that to the community and start reaping the benefits of it. So I think the district as a whole should be proud. It's a huge monument here. It's one of the largest kind of solar arrays in the Ashland area.
So can I ask, does that feed into our, the wider array, and then we get back as much as we've put in, or is that just going directly?
This one goes straight to trails.
Oh, yep. Nice. Okay.
So the way it's set up is it's net meters back to trails. So it essentially produces power for trails. With that, right now Ashland isn't quite set up with the infrastructure to feed power back to the grid, but still a great monument. So
yeah. I mean, I love the location you guys picked. I mean, it's hidden. It's like kind of in an area that wasn't used. Oh, I mean, unless you live. Right.
It's low profile. It's low profile.
She got to watch the progress, so
she got to feel the progress.
Probably still feel it.
And don't forget, we still have some more solar to go. We have that 1% requirement, and I think we're about halfway through that. So we'll be coming back hopefully in the next year or so with another project that meets that 1% requirement.
Nice.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yes, I do have questions. I know.
Here we go.
That's all right.
Well, I just hadn't looked at the financials in a while, and I just wanted a reminder, because I think, and maybe I'll kind of say what I remember. I'm just looking at the first 2 pages, but just as a reminder on the program budget, there was the system development charges with the city, and also the other planning fees, and the planning fees was the one that we had budgeted like a significantly less amount than what the charges ended up being, and I know that the city worked with us and we made some modifications. It looks like the SDC fees are very small. Were those the ones that they reduced, and how did that all get resolved?
Yeah, so I think you were well aware of that as we were kind of working through it. It became apparent that there was going to be a significant amount of not only fees for SDC, system development charges, but also just the overall permit costs. So plan reviews, building permits, structural reviews, those types of things. So with that, we have seen a reduction in all of the projects going forward of what's been charged as far as a percentage of the overall project cost. So that was somewhat of a break that we received from the city. And then in addition to that, I believe there was some funds returned, Steve, if you remember the exact amount.
And don't forget this, we went through this with Gertie Builders, and then we pushed pause, and then we had to go, and we had to resubmit a lot of that back through planning, and that's where that reduction was seen, was in the, like for instance, we just met today, and there's no SDCs on the science building. We got that one, we got the permits back for that, and nothing. So we're seeing a drastic reduction, but I think the budget is a little bit out of skew right now because this is literally the second time we've made an attempt at this project, and so a lot of that stuff had to be resubmitted through planning. So, and I don't know how or exactly what the amount was that was returned. I'd have to go back that was over a year ago, almost 2 years ago. So I'm gonna have to go back and look and see what that amount was.
It was around like 600,000.
That's what I recall. Yeah. I wasn't in the current role I am now, so I was a little bit detached from it, but
we'll dig it up and get it to you.
Yeah, I more just wanted to see like if they're like ongoing, what you both just talked to, if
it feels drastically lower.
Yeah, there has been a reduction overall as far as the percentage that's been charged to the district. So on the projects going forward.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think we have one more phase.
Yeah.
Third phase that has to go through planning.
Yep.
Okay.
For the high school.
And then, am I reading it right that we're down to $6.5 million? That's what's left of the bond.
Unallocated.
Correct.
From unallocated.
Yeah.
We're still working within the high school bond project allocation, that budget. That $6.5 million is unallocated, and those are monies that have not been allocated and/or have come back to us from the other projects.
Okay.
Like we just got $600,000 back from Walker. That was contractor contingency that was unused.
Yep.
Wow.
So there's some additional kind of funds within the individual project level that we're reconciling as we've reached the completion of these projects. So to balance all of that out, we'd like to do that, but we should be currently on track for being on budget. We do have the last bid package for the high school out right now. We received bids last week. I should have updated you guys on that. We got good coverage there. We don't have the numbers of exactly what that bid package equates to. So that's really the final piece. So with that, we'll be able to look at the budget for the high school as a whole and see kind of where we're landing as far as whether we're over, under budget, and then looking at kind of reallocation of some of those additional funds that are in those other projects. So we will be sitting down with Scott and Steve next month to take a deep dive on a kind of line-by-line basis within each project to balance out those projects, if you will.
Any hope for the roof?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. And I mean, I guess all right, I'll let you go.
Yes. Samuel, am I okay? I'm going to share with you. I will be coming to you with a recommendation to pull from unallocated for the roof.
Great. Thank you.
We
That's
have
what we would like to hear.
one of our 3 roofing companies has given us a bid. We're waiting for the other 2 to come in. And then we will go through the process of picking one, and then we will probably be making a recommendation really soon to try to get that on the summer schedule.
Thank you.
But we're going to pull from unallocated for that.
Okay.
That's our recommendation, is to move unallocated into the high school project to repair the roof.
I'm pretty sure we're going to go with
I hope so.
But I think from a budgetary standpoint, I think we're in a good position for
Great.
that right now.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
The timing's kind of perfect, right? Because we're ending the rainy
The
season.
timing's not perfect.
It's a challenging.
No, I know at least one of these roofers that we're
Yeah,
talking to
it's
is
probably
completely,
a busy
they're
time.
completely booked up this summer. They're
Yeah.
looking at summer of
Oh,
25.
bummer.
So yeah, we should have been, maybe a month ago would have been a perfect time to be talking to these folks. But we still feel confident. We know at least 1 and possibly 2 that have room this summer. So we're moving as fast as we can to try to get on their schedule. So
I wonder if I could just briefly interject. I really want to just acknowledge our maintenance and facilities director and our maintenance crew. They've gone up there and moved tons of rocks around, hunting and looking for everything that they can do to affect any kind of a patching in the interim. So deeply appreciative of that work. It's not easy. There's 20,000 tons of rock up there or something like that?
200 tons.
Anyway, a bunch of rock. And they've really been doing their best. So
We repurposing it elsewhere? Trip.
it actually has to go right back
has
on
to get off the
to
roof
hold down
first.
the roof. That's the nature of that roof.
At all.
I can tell you why. I found out
Not at
why.
all.
It's the rock is actually serving as a ballast. It's keeping the top layer of that roof in place. That was a design feature back in the early to mid 80s, and so they put all the built up down. They put the top layer down, and they put 200 tons of rock on top of it to keep it there and to help with drainage. So it's actually acting as a ballast. So if we took all that rock off, the top layers of that roof would start to blow away.
So it'll be a non-rock roof, right?
No,
No.
I think the recommendation
We're trying to get all the rock
be an
off.
adhered roof.
Yeah,
It'd be-
that would
it'd
be
be
good.
a-
There will be a
adhered roof.
seminar on antique roofing techniques.
I wish
Can we have
I could
that in our
take
next work
accountability
session,
for
please?
this one, but I can't. I can. It's plausible deniability. I was still in high school or junior high in 1980. So, we finally had one of the architects dug deep enough to find this condition out there, and it's serving as a ballast. So we can't just take all the rock off. It's actually part of the roofing structure. So, but yes, we're hoping to get that resolved this summer.
That's great.
Okay. Good news.
That's all I got.
Any other questions? Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you all.
All right. So next we have update on SBAC and district report card with Willow Wynn principal Debbie Pugh.
I know. We're nice and warmed up now, Debbie. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Just getting
Trying to
started.
lighten the.
Of course.
Do I just close theirs down.
Oh, we gotta get you sorry.
Where it goes. I can bring my computer.
Huh?
My computer.
No, it's right here.
Okay.
You can only show the PDFs and the. I gotta bring a mouse next time. This is crazy. You're all right. You're down in the last batch, so I have to. No, I know it's on here. It's just chained down here. Yeah. Click on it and see if it. Yes. And then you can set it up as a slideshow if you want to.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Looks like he's gonna ask something. Are you gonna ask something, Steve?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I am charged with talking to you about the district-wide data from last year. So, this is the 22-23 report card. This is the public-facing information that is on the ODE website. Anybody can, search it. And I think I guess I'm not clear how you want me to do it. Do you want me to go through each thing, or have you had a chance to look at it, or?
I mean, we should have all, had a chance to review it.
Okay.
Basics.
So do you have any questions about the report card?
I think it'd be good to go through it and just ask questions as we go. Is that
okay? Okay.
Yeah, but you might want to lean into the microphone a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It works best about this far from your face.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. So the first section is on regular attenders, and it looks like, I guess I should explain the graph first of all. So the brown, the inside one, is our data, and the outside one is Oregon. Mm-hmm. So there's 69% of the students were regular attenders, which was down a little bit from the previous year.
So the arrow to the right indicates change for Ashland itself.
Right. Yeah. Correct. It does.
So
go ahead.
I was just saying, it might be helpful just to talk, and we can just
sort
talk
of
in general
terms about the trends and
the trends, and certainly this number of downward trends is atypical and kind of disheartening a bit on this page in terms of attendance and gosh, the math was down 11%. I mean, typically seeing a difference between us and the state, it's not that. I don't feel that's much of a measure. Frankly, I think measuring us against ourselves and like districts, which we don't have on this one. But yeah, just for me, this first page just has some alarming things about.
Well, it's extremely alarming to me that the Oregon average is 26% for math. I mean, that's.
This was 22, 20.
This was last year.
So
yep.
So the first year, really.
And I'm wondering how much, if we know how much of a delay effect there is on COVID impacts. I mean, like, there's an impact, but then we feel that impact for how much? 6 months, a full year?
The good question.
But it is compared against Oregon numbers, so I mean, everyone would have an impact. We typically are better than Oregon.
Yeah, we're definitely better than Oregon.
And again, like for me, that's kind of a straw person comparison because. It is really should
right.
be
If you're looking at a base of 26%, that's
and against like districts.
Great.
Something that I would find helpful, and I don't know if we have that information, just so we can see a bigger picture, is whether our downward and upward trends correlate to the state's downward and upward trends. So we can see the
that would be good.
Of just
Well, I mean, we have all this data. It's certainly on file somewhere that we should be able to pull up those trends, right?
Yeah, I mean, there.
Yes, and I can tell you, definitely, attendance is an issue and math is an issue statewide. I don't know what I suspect it's also true of 5-year completers. And to answer, I can't remember who brought up the question, I think it was Dan around COVID. We're definitely still feeling the impacts of COVID. We've seen through our own formative assessments and things like iReady that we have made really good gains, but there's still a number of kids that are still impacted. It takes a few years to work that out of the system, and then getting back into the rhythm of taking state assessments, I think also probably had some impact statewide. I am encouraged here by our 9th grade on track, and that's really that measure of at the end of the first term, our kids in their first year of high school, have they reached the number of credits that they need to reach, because that's a really good indicator, as the research has shown, that they'll actually complete high school and be able to complete it on time. So that's encouraging, as much as some of these other pieces are definitely areas of concern. I do think they fairly much follow the pattern of what we're seeing overall after the impact of COVID.
Well, and the on-time graduation and the 5-year completion are a year behind. So this is not all a representation of the same year, because that data is always collected in January. So
I see.
It's a little bit different.
So just kind of in terms of math overall, just how are we this year? I know it's hard. These are always lagged a year, right? So in terms of thinking about math this year and the support that kids are going to need, clearly post-COVID, we've really had a lot of downward shift in that. What does that look like for the district in terms of supporting math to a greater degree?
To me, that ties into your earlier question about how are we assessing the curriculum that we are, if we have a new curriculum and we're seeing a drop, is that raising a concern, or is this more of a global situation?
Yeah. Well, we are implementing new curriculum this year, so it'll be interesting to see how the results of that,
new curriculum.
That come through. And then when we get all of the summative tests in terms of SBAC, we want to take a look at that. I think that we'll have some of this data actually updated for you on Saturday when we sit down and do some deeper dive into some of our strategic goals. That may be a little bit more recent, but I'm not sure whether or not we have anything to report this year from math.
Is it possible to just go page by page and ask if there's questions? Just because it's, I feel like it might bounce around.
Are you guys ready to go to the next page?
Yep.
Oops. Okay, hold on. Okay. So this is just that same information broken down.
So can I ask you, did anything jump out at you as particularly interesting or alarming on here?
Well, I think there's a lot of room for conversation.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I do think that there's a lot of things that are concerning on here.
Thank you. And do we, I know we have this report card from the previous year. Are there any areas where we've radically changed in?
Well, there's comparative coming later in this.
Okay. Thank you.
That you'll be able to see.
I mean, for me, the breakdown of attendance by race and ethnicity is quite sobering.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that we've been talking about in the Reimagining High School, just the real issue with engagement and attendance. And when it breaks down by when you see 39% for American Indian, Alaska Native, and also Hispanic Latino at 64%. I mean, it's 49 for homeless. I mean, these are low for some of these categories.
Yeah.
There are also small populations, which
for sure
can skew that.
Can skew, yep.
And
absolutely.
There's so many, and you'll see as we go forward too. There's so many when we're talking about race and ethnicity that are suppressed because our initial, population is so small.
Right. Yeah.
I had a question on this slide
Let me go
about.
back. I'll go back.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
it's just about free and reduced lunch. On this slide, it says 57% free and reduced lunch. And Samuel, this might be a question for you because we didn't qualify this year. And I know this is 22-23, but I'm still just, again, is that more realistic that we have 57% on free and reduced lunch and that?
No, that's 57% of people.
Oh, sorry.
Attend regularly.
Oh,
This is about
okay.
attendance.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks. My colleagues.
Okay, so this is it's a breakdown a little bit more of the student assessment. And this shows how these slides are represented. Thank you to Jennifer Grisham, who put all this information together. And this is a template that has been presented to the board year after year. And so I think if there's questions that aren't being represented, then that would be good to ask. And in the future, we could maybe format it differently. But when we go to the next slides, right, the bar that's on the left is going to represent Ashland, and the bar that's on the right is going to represent what the statewide figures were. And the green is exceeds. This is all smarter balanced. Yellow is meets. Orange is nearly meets, and red is does not meet, but neither orange nor red meets. So it shows you a gray area, but they don't count as achieving standard, even if they're in the orange.
And why on the bottom are the percentages swapped, the last two, level 1 and level 2? I just wish that it was ordered the way the graph was ordered. Like level 4, 3, 2, 1. Instead, it's 4, 3, 1, 2. It just.
Oh, you know what? I'm guessing that is a formatting error. You'll see, because it goes that way.
It changes.
Yeah.
It is the way.
No,
it is that way.
All the way through. Yeah.
I'm glad to see that we're bouncing back.
Well, in some cases.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at just the first slide of it. In a lot of cases, we're down, but
yeah.
So how much?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, now help me understand. If I understand SBAC correctly, this is the one where when you start getting them half wrong, that's when it's one that measures the level to when you start getting them half wrong. Is that correct? Is SBAC one of those assessments?
That's iReady.
No.
An adaptive assessment?
An adaptive. Okay. Good.
It's not adaptive.
Thank you.
So the next few slides are about grades 3 through 5. Oh my gosh, this just isn't showing right.
Oh yeah, that's very different.
It looks good on ours.
Oh, okay.
On mine.
I will do my best to answer the questions because this is. Yeah, mine looks fine on my computer too, but. Okay. So, this is all students, and it is not showing on this screen, but I think on the left is language arts, if I'm correct, and the right 3 are math.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have questions?
No, the next one for me is definitely worth some comments. The next slide.
Okay. Yeah, this is really, and I don't know, is there anything we can do about the way it's showing? It's really hard to see.
I mean, we've got it right on our screens.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Well, I'm going to get my computer so I can at least see it.
Yeah, please.
for this one,
I think we didn't save it as a PDF, so it probably shifted.
That's not the PDF version, no, that's the PowerPoint.
Right, but if you save it as a PDF, it doesn't change formatting. Don't worry about it. It's
so just in terms of this economically disadvantaged subgroup, first of all, we know that it's not a small number, right? So for some of the race and ethnicity categories, small numbers can mean big changes in the percentage, but this is a more robust group.
Right.
And like when I am looking at, for example, math 22, 23, we are mirroring, in some way, we are mirroring the state. I mean, we're a little bit better, but I've never seen us mirror the state like that. That's a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Similarly, again, for 22, 23 in language arts, I mean, I haven't ever seen us mirror the state like that.
I would be curious
This
if
is 3 through 5 that we're looking at, right?
So, well,
'Cause this
let me
doesn't
give you one piece of information about the way this data is. So, for the economically disadvantaged, so in 21, 22, Ashland had the whole district on free and reduced. So everybody, that's everybody.
That must have changed,
Okay.
right?
that's what I was curious about.
Yeah, and so it does skew the comparison.
No, I understand, but historically...
No, I'm not
Yeah.
disagreeing with you, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that it is different, because if you look at the graph for 21, 22, it's going to be exactly the same as all students.
It's an
right?
important thing to know.
It would be nice to have like a sample size written.
I was curious about if the number, like what is the population for each of those? Is it growing? And then also how economically disadvantaged, like how far below?
What's our...
Like is that also
So-
going down?
Yeah, so we need like a definition of what
Yeah.
economically disadvantaged.
More information before we can really interpret this.
It would be, so I don't know who's to ask for going forward, but for this one, I think ends would be really helpful, because then we would see that issue that you just brought up, Debbie. But kind of regardless of that, frankly, just 22, 23, now we have leveled out and we're accurately reporting free and reduced. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I clarify that you're saying that the data set changed for 22, 23? Like,
Yeah.
it's different?
Just all
all kids were considered free, and all kids got free lunch.
So
In
that
20
doesn't actually
In 21,
compare-
22.
In 21, 22,
Yeah.
not in 22,
It
23.
doesn't reflect a trend. Well, we can't infer a trend from it because the data set has changed.
Correct, because
Pretty significantly.
But 22, 23, we can, and we're seeing, I mean, I've never seen us mirror the state like this. So that's, for me, is really concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even though it's a smaller group, I do want to see what that number is. It should still be a pretty substantial number.
It should be, yeah.
I mean, that should be a valid.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
you know what, I'll tell you what it is. You guys, we have the data at the beginning.
Really?
So 1/3 of our kids are free and reduced lunch. So that's what that's reflecting.
Yeah, and if
So-
anything, that's a higher percentage in the elementary group.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we look at that, we're looking at 1/3 of our students.
Yeah, so that's not good.
But let's clarify.
Okay, not to just keep repeating myself, but I just want to be really clear about where the data set, where the sample size changes, right?
So
that-
I'm sorry, I was going to say, in 21, 22,
Right.
it's a different
It's a,
group
that's where
of
we have a
kids.
large.
That's everybody.
It is all the kids.
But only for 21, 22.
Only for 21, 22.
Curious
Right.
then is, did we always match the state or close to match the state in
For this
the
category?
smaller data set that
No.
we're using now?
No.
But, well, I guess my question and maybe point is that we don't know because we're in 22, 23, it's a smaller data set. It's a different group of people. And so our percentages, we don't actually know what the historical trend of.
Well, but it was similar previously. It was just that year, right? That when
Only
all the
21,
students were
Right.
included.
21, 22 is the year that's the exception.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Got it.
yeah.
So if you look
Because
further back, then you
pre-COVID.
can get that trend.
Pre-COVID, so
So that-
that's accurate, right? That's true, free and reduced. And so just also, I mean, what I know is, looking at the state over a long period of time, to see us match the state is shocking. We don't match the state. And so that's a big point of concern for me.
Well, and I mean, it's worth investigating why. My gut would tell me it's because COVID. That COVID was probably a pretty big equalizer
I guess,
in
yeah.
having students do poorly.
I guess so. I mean, that's a great question.
Yeah, so
Let's
we
find
need to
out.
see some further trends playing out.
Well, yeah, the supports
Well,
But again, you would hope you would not just see that in our, economically disadvantaged subgroup. You should see that same kind of trend in
Right.
all of the
Good
groups which we
point.
aren't
So if we're
necessarily seeing.
If we're looking at all students.
Right.
But
which we
COVID
have
also had
above.
uneven impact.
Okay, so that's the
Right.
answer. If you look at the
That's what I
previous one, we don't see the same trend.
Right, so that trend isn't there among all students.
So there is a significant issue for economically disadvantaged kids.
well,
It's a
and
bad
this one is students with disabilities.
Those are us.
This is grades 6 through 8, and the grades 6 through 8 include all 6 through 8. It's not just AMS. And here we are again with all students with language arts.
So we're seeing math again, kind of.
It's not as bad, but
Not
it's
as
still,
bad, yeah,
not great.
Not great. It's about 50% at half or above. Half are meeting.
And it's interesting to kind of see the compression of the level 4 and expansion of level 1.
Yeah.
Overall, kids better, but fewer kids doing better and more kids doing worse.
At least over this past year, or
Yeah.
the previous 2 years, yeah.
And this economically disadvantaged category is the same, it's the same
For
group,
middle,
it's the same
middle
issue.
school. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing there too. Wow.
Yeah.
And students with disabilities.
Well, like Samuel said, like COVID would disproportionately affected these students more.
ELA in 11th grade, or even below the state.
Yeah, so 11th grade
I have
is-
special notes on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That made me.
So these are our
Yeah.
11th graders.
So, in the 11th grade, I was totally shocked to see us lower than the state. That was really.
Okay, so now, again,
Can I
I'm going to
interject as a
break in
student?
there because, speaking to students, I know a lot of them are not giving their best effort on these tests.
It's a 8th period. As soon as you're done, you get to go home. It's a type of test.
So, I mean, I'm literally hearing them saying they're
Stories
picking
about
A.
So how are we going to?
So-
So Samuel, how do we change that? Because
We've been having that discussion, and I
Yeah.
would love to hear from our student advocates, because I think obviously these tests aren't necessarily measures that impact students individually tremendously, right? But they do have a tremendous impact in terms of saying how we're doing as a district in terms of teaching kids.
Yeah.
And so it definitely reflects on the district and what we're doing instructionally. So I guess, what do you all think would help create a greater level of investment?
Just having like some kind of incentive. I don't know what that would be, but there has to be something where it's like you do this and you get this, or something like that, or else students are just going to click through because they don't really understand the repercussions of doing poorly or not putting in their best effort. So
it's like you can understand it, but you have to also care because
Yes.
students are tired, they want to go
Curious
home.
about that.
So we have
Right.
talked a little bit about incentives, and the only ones that I've heard that have any amount of like potential to work was I heard a teacher tell us for iReady that the results are published in the paper and we need to be better than Phoenix. Our rivals, and
Okay,
we had
that's
just
right.
beat them in
See?
soccer.
I mean, you've gotta
and
make
we
it
beat them in
something.
sports, and we have to beat them in this too. So any amount of competition. Also, we spoke briefly on we've been introducing the class points.
I
So
just
some
wanna
level
be-
of like
I
class
ha-
points.
Yeah, I want to be clear. We cannot. That's just unethical. Unfortunately, we cannot give things to people to take a test or to, but what we need to find ways to get them invested in doing their best.
Yeah,
so the iReady.
I think that's the thing where we want to be accountable. I mean, if you're saying, if you know how well, I didn't know how well, so I don't know generally until I see these reports how well high school students are doing, and I'm not going to name names, but I know a certain recent graduate that was very excited about the fact that they scored at the 8th grade level by just marking straight down the test on the test, and so it's right. It's 8th period, and you get to go. And I'm wondering if there's some.
We should not be giving these tests 8th period. That's an easy one right there.
It's taking out of class time. So if you
so
are a junior that's in a senior class, or your teacher can't allocate that time to take it, I have been told by teachers finish this as fast as you can because you've got to get back to class.
Yeah.
It's it's not
huge.
a priority.
That's huge.
I've heard that too.
Well, I think the other thing about the high school is and I don't know that this affects it, but maybe you guys have some input. So, all of the third, I said kindergarten, but they don't start till third. So 3rd grade through 8th grade, they do it in their classroom with their teachers. And the high school, because they have mixed grades, they don't ask the teachers to administer it. They have proctors, and they take them to the computer lab or wherever they are. I know for a fact, because I'm now the test coordinator for now, that they're not all at 8th period this year because the teachers have signed up for lots of different periods to send the kids, because I can see the schedule. But I really wonder about the difference between having a teacher who you have a relationship with proctoring the exam versus going somewhere to sit and get through an exam because you have to get back to class. And I do think there's a lot of relationship issues that could help kids want to do their best.
Can we ask the teacher in our audience for input? Would you mind giving, is there some input you would like to give into how we can address this?
So this is, as with many different things about that I'm learning the more I stay here in Ashland, there's a unique culture. We have a unique culture around drugs as a community. We have a unique culture around standardized testing as a community to educate. And if your teachers have the same attitude, like, hey, get this done so you can come back and do what's really important, just by saying that sentence in that way, you can influence those students against doing their best. So I know that we all do our best, we all do what we can. But when I saw these, I teach 11th and 12th graders. I've got a sci-fi class over there. And I told them that it was, the results from last year were shameful. They brought dishonor to the dojo. So I implemented a forward program. I was like, you finish these, you do them to the best of your ability. Do them to the best of your ability. Come on back with these cupcakes. Now, you don't have to pass, you just have to take your time. Because the last year it was, let's rush through it, let's get out of here, I got a shift, or I need to get to volleyball practice, or whatever it is, you know? So the pay it forward thing is, if they score better, then they don't have to buy the cupcakes for the next year. But if they score worse, then they're going to have to buy the cupcakes for that next year.
I'm not listening.
You're right.
But I think you really get at some important things about the culture and how these are understood, and really the importance of these scores to how we work as a district. Yeah?
And how we basically present our district, our educational model, and what we're actually producing. Because right here is not going to get more people to come to the
That's
school.
right.
It's
Because
not going to get people to buy real estate, come in here and bring their little children.
Yeah. This is public, y'all. So right.
So Ella, I just have to ask you, what's unethical about cupcakes?
So you can't offer a reward for testing, right?
Why not?
Because this could be really abused, right? So it's like,
Well, I mean, it's not based on a score. It's just based on, take the
participation.
test.
Okay.
Right?
I think in that case, Yeah, if all kids get the cupcake, all kids have to get the cupcake. Whether they race through it or
All
not.
kids have to have the opportunity.
And Ashland, they need
get
to
the
be
cupcake.
gluten-free.
No, it has, whether they race through it or not, okay? Oh, yes, all kids get the cupcake. And it has to be understood as participation, not scores, not effort, just, yeah.
Exactly. But yes.
But I think the other message here is as administration, we really need to work with teachers to educate teachers about the critical nature of this so that the messaging that you all receive really is appropriate, because I think, as Mr. Creel and others have suggested here, you know, people are looking at this data, they make assessments about whether or not they want to bring their schools here. We have phenomenal schools, we need our scores to be able to reflect that so that people want to come, and we can, because that allows us in turn to maintain robust programming, right? Because we have the kind of enrollment that we know we're capable of.
Okay, the other thing is that, you know, when you apply to college, they do actually weight the high school that you went to. So to do well at Ashland High School is actually seen as a greater accomplishment than doing well at...
That's
so when-
100% accurate.
Right. So then when
The
we
high school is ranked
when we,
high.
when we got
scores
scores
drop,
like
that's
this,
down.
it affects our reputation.
And that can affect
Yeah.
scholarships in a very real way.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, maybe we really get out.
Maybe that's the
meeting.
part, that's,
Yeah.
I think we have.
Yeah, and for teachers, I really like the idea of really hammering to teachers that it's what the value of these are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is the reputation of our district that's at stake
And I
here.
believe the high school administrative team has started this dialogue very directly with some of the departments. And the departments, to their credit, are really engaging in this, and I think that dialogue is rich based on what I understand. I defer to Mr. Creel, but I know that that's been part of our discussions at a leadership level to look at that data and really engage with teachers on it so that they understand it and they understand the impact.
I also think we need to be careful not to discount it completely. I think that there is need, you know, that our vision of how well the kids do maybe should be looked at more carefully. Because I know that there are kids that rush through who could do a better job, and I think there's kids that need support too. I mean, it's what you were saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
I don't
how do you
wanna-
differentiate them when you don't have data?
Well, and so I was on the site council for Trails, and we were looking at both this data alongside the iReady data. They were completely different. And in my mind, one of these we need to be able to trust. Otherwise, I'm looking at same kids, two different sets of data. So one of these are reflecting bad data, or I don't know. I mean, as a viewer, I was going.
Or they're not equivalent, right? I mean,
Right, they're very different
Yeah,
tests.
it's really hard to compare.
Yeah. I mean, if they're equivalent, that's different, but
I mean, you're still looking at math results. You're still looking at English results. I mean, yeah, maybe you could find the similarity, but to me, it's the same kids.
Well, but the iReady is supposed to be predictive. I mean, that is one reason why they use it. It's supposed to predict how kids will do on SBAC.
that's what we've been told.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But the tests themselves are very different, because iReady is what Dan was talking about
It's
before,
adaptive.
right? It's
Yeah.
adaptive. So as kids do well, it gets harder.
Right.
And as kids miss them, it gets easier. So kids that have been taking iReady now for quite a number of years know when they missed a question, because the challenge level changes. And so I don't know if those two pieces are exact, you know, that you really can compare.
but it's still looking at, is this sixth grader, or is this cohort of sixth graders, are they at grade level? Are they above grade level? Which is essentially what we're looking at here. So it reflects it differently, but not much really. I mean, we still want to know, is that group of sixth graders at grade level or not. And when I see two different results, as a school board member, like, we're not in the classroom. We can only rely on the data. So to me, that we're only as good as the data. So,
well, I do think most sites, at least most elementary sites, I certainly can't speak for the high school, and I'm not sure about the middle school, do feel like they're usually pretty close. That, as we're looking at iReady scores, it really does inform us, and usually we can be pretty predictive, pretty accurate to know who is going to pass SBAC and who isn't by watching the iReady scores.
I mean, that's always been my sense as well, is that the elementary students are giving a consistent level of effort, and it's really the high school and late middle school where that drops off, where there sort of is more of an intentional, I don't need to do my best here, right? Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to look at the rest of this? What? It is late.
Still doesn't explain to me why the results.
Okay, so this is 11th grade students with disabilities. And that one, because less than 5% were proficient, the data was suppressed. Because they were afraid it would be recognizable.
Oh, yeah, I wondered.
Okay.
So this is across the district, the assessment by race and ethnicity. And because there were so few students, they had to do it district-wide. You can't look at data just elementary or just middle or just high based on ethnicity.
Debbie, can we ask Jennifer in the future, it's really nice to see these ends here. Can we ask to have them on all of the...
Yeah.
Would make a big
I
difference.
made a note to mention that to her.
Yeah, because the ends are great right here. And
that's really helpful.
And these, just to reorient you, and you probably already know this, but these are 2 separate years, right? This is not versus Oregon anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. This one was language arts. This one.
And again, these are not the percentages that, it depends, but.
Do we have more historic data for this?
It doesn't exist.
Okay.
I'm sure they could mine it.
This is a report we pull every year, so we do have prior years going back, and we can look some of that up and provide that to the board.
And keep in mind when you're looking at this, this is nice because we have comparators right here. But keep in mind if you want to compare, all students include everybody. So if you want to look at minoritized communities compared to white communities, you want to look at the far right to make the comparisons, not the far left.
And the way the state presents race and ethnicity data, every student's only in one category, regardless of what they choose. And this is math.
I'd really love to be able to see if, especially longer range, just to see if we can see the effects of any interventions historically. Like if we adopted district-wide a curriculum here, and then we saw a bump up from that, or we saw something have fires happen in our community, and we saw I would like to see a few years just to see if we can see what the.
Well, this would be an opportune year to start that, since this was our first year of implementation.
Cool. Yeah. It's really cool to get this stuff. I mean, it's not sobering, but.
But also, it's great. Great to see.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
What do we do? I have one question. what do we do with this? Like, once we, I mean, obviously, I'm looking at Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino numbers dropping, being the most drastic shift. Like, so do we take this now and come up with a plan?
Yes, we should.
Yeah, well, yes, we should, but I mean, do we?
Yes, let's.
Yeah, we do, and that work is ongoing. But one of the things that we'll be talking tomorrow a little bit about, or not tomorrow, Saturday at the retreat, is going over the strategic plan, where we're at with our last strategies and initiatives in advance of the district doing that work again next year. So that's at a very high level, and that same work continues, as we're looking with data teams and strategies at sites to address some of those issues.
I think what's true is that this isn't new information to the people at the sites.
It's not.
And it's not like people are ignoring it. I think what Samuel said is important, that it is ongoing work and has been ongoing work. So people are very aware of it, and people want to do something to change what this state is telling us, for sure. So I think there are plans, and it'd be great to see what, if you have suggestions or whatever in your conversation.
One thing that might be of interest for the board is to actually bring in, and this could probably be more of a work session agenda, and do a deeper dive with some of the principals to hear.
Those are the things that would be really cool.
And to hear about interventions and what things.
Yes.
That's what.
The whole multi-tiered system of supports that we've talked about is a big piece of it, where we identify those pieces. And the other piece is looking at universal design for learning, where we really try to find our best instructional practices for accessibility for all kids. And that's work that we've been engaged in pretty intensively, but to hear more about it and the details, I think would be helpful.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry to be the deliverer of this information.
Draw straws for that one?
I want to just acknowledge Debbie. Debbie stepped into the role of district test coordinator, and full disclosure, wasn't fully informed initially that this was one of the pieces that we asked our district test coordinator to do, and I just really appreciate the effort and time that she put into it.
Yes, thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
So tiny. They're tiny.
Scott's going to take us home to 11 o'clock.
Okay, oh, sorry, I'm falling down on my job here. So we are on to the final report, our finance report, with Director of Business Services, Scott Whitman.
Thank you.
Oops, so riveted by the data.
I know.
Still the bond, hang on.
How can you not be?
I forget they have these pages and pages of...
I know. Right. I mean, it's crazy. It's really frustrating. I mean, literally, I'm talking to this is the whole team, you know.
Right, we know
they're like, they're totally academically motivated kids, and they're like, yeah.
But, I mean, she also made a good point. You can't discount it just because you know.
Yeah. But you just. Yeah,
okay, so this is the February report for our general fund. And again, no significant change from what we're projecting for the year end in June from where we reported last month. If you look at the very bottom of the report, the ending fund balance is right in that 900,000 range. Still monitoring spending. It's hard to cut back a significant amount during the course of the year because so much of our spending is tied to staffing, as we know. So that's kind of where we are. So what's going on from here budget-wise? So spending a lot of time, as you know, planning for budget. We're right about a month from our first budget committee meeting for the district. This kind of blows me away to think we're there already, but it's a lot of work between now and then. I will pass on. I think we're, with the planning that we're doing and the plan that we have in place, I think we have a good path out of our situation with our overspending. And if we can do what we have brought forward to the board, kind of this two-year phase, phase one, phase two of trying to first stop our overspending and then recover, I think we're on good track for that. And we'll bring that plan forward to the board, and to the budget committee. So right now, with what we have planned and what we're talking about with our lead team, with our bargaining units, I think we're on good track to balance our spending. So that's the main thing right now.
Is the upcoming RIFs, are those accounted for in here?
Not in this, because this is the current year.
So
current
those
year
will go into
projection. So
effect. Okay.
that's what I was saying earlier is, we're kind of hovering around this 900,000 to $1 million ending fund balance. That's what we're projecting anyway. That really hasn't changed because we really haven't had any, other than, random, there might be a resignation here or two, but nothing significant not that we're generating. So again, this is just the general fund for the current year. So
I can share that in our budget work, I think we ended up with fewer RIFs than anticipated to reach our goal level. A lot through reduction of temporary folk, some retirements, some of those kinds of pieces that we were able to leverage. So I think that's really good news. The board will actually be asked, I think, at the April meeting to take final action on those. Folks are getting notified prior to spring break, but it was a smaller number than we had originally anticipated, which is good news.
Similar reduction levels, but coming through resignations and retirements instead of having to go through a reduction in force process. So yeah, that's worked in our benefit. So still reducing spending that we need to, but just coming through a different, maybe a friendlier path to get there. To some degree, yeah. Still, there's still going to be an impact in the classrooms and in the buildings. So, but that's where we're at.
No more questions?
So that's all I have right now.
No, we're all dazed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I saved all my financial questions for the bond.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Well, we got 12 more minutes.
I'm like,
we might not have to
vote. All right, well, I'm going to move on to announcements and appointments then. The board will hold a special session on Saturday, March 16th, 2024, beginning at 8:30 a.m. for its winter planning retreat at the district office, 885 Siskiyou Boulevard. I just want to confirm that is 8:30 because I saw it written as, I know we changed
to 9.
9 to 2:30 is what I...
Well, it had originally been 9 to 3, and then we switched it back to 8:30 to 2:30 was my understanding, so I just want to confirm whether or not that is the case.
I had written down 9 to 2:30.
9? It's fine with me.
I'm for 9 to 3, but whatever.
Well,
I'm for starting at 9.
But we got to
Okay.
get to the concert.
We got to get to the concert. Yeah.
Okay,
sorry.
so what time is the concert?
3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's why we had
9 to
initially switched it
2:50.
back. But if no, I got
If the board would like to be there at 8:30,
You guys can
use
keep talking without me,
before
it's
the
fine.
other administrative folks, because I've given them times already. You could utilize that time to have some additional conversation if you wanted to get there a little bit early.
Okay. Well, so the building will be open. We can come start having some informal conversations.
I apologize, I didn't change it on that list. I did change
That's
it
fine.
on the agenda.
I just want to make sure that we are all clear on what the official time is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say 9 o'clock to 2:30 is the official time as posted, correct?
That's what.
Okay. Okay. And the board will hold a work session on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Note, this is the third Thursday, as the following week is spring break, so make sure you guys all have your calendars out. The next regular session meeting will be held on Thursday, April 11th, 2024, beginning at 7 in City Council Chamber right here. Zoom link will also be available. This meeting is adjourned.
I have to make a quick announcement. Please, nobody use the back door. There's some deficit with the back door, and they asked us not to go out that way.
For the normal
Okay.
temporary teachers, are these
I
teachers
check
that-
it. I don't think.